No, Chuck's giving me 5 extra minutes in the mornings for days like this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I can get all my other stuff done.
Big news. I have some important news for you.
Interesting news.
It's Blake and Aaron's Spilling the Tea with Sandy.
K-Man's top news headlines of the day from CMR.
Brought to you on Kiss FM exclusively by J. Michael, fashion for everyone. Good morning, Sandy.
Hey, good morning, Blake and Aaron. How are you guys doing today? Good. Happy Thursday.
Yeah. What do you got for us?
I almost said Friday, but it's only Thursday.
Almost.
Yes. So a couple of news headlines for you. A man convicted for child pornography loses his appeal to have his sentence reduced. Just a really shocking story because CMR was involved in capturing this man, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Vincent Ricardo Holness was convicted and sentenced to only 33 months in jail, and he obviously thinks that that's too much. He appealed his sentence, and it was dismissed by the Court of Appeal.
Wow.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a wild story. I'll have to tell you guys off air, but basically we saw a shocking video online and immediately notified the police. That's just how egregious and shocking it was.
Wow.
And we provided them the video and they investigated it and arrested this local man.
Well, glad
Pretty shocking.
that happened.
Ugh.
Well, not glad that happened. Glad you.
Glad he's off the
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. The Ministry of Education is training some 40 school security officers in conflict resolution. This is quite good, I think. They've completed their training in developing and supporting positive behaviors as part of a UK accredited Team Teach program. So certified intermediate trainers provided the training at Clifton Hunter High School. And hopefully that helps with some of the situations that happen at those facilities.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty interesting. All right, the U.S. approves the sale of lab-grown chicken. Don't know if you guys saw this or not.
No.
I think they just need to come here, and we got a lot of chicken.
That doesn't sound good.
I know. We can help them out. No need for lab-grown. We've got yard-grown and yard. They run around in the yard.
Yard bird.
Yeah.
Yard bird.
Yeah.
So this company called Good Meat, which is division.
What a terrible name.
What's it called?
Good meat.
Good Meat.
Mm.
Their division of Eat Just Inc. announced that it has received approval from the USDA for its first poultry product, which is cultivated chicken to be sold in the U.S.
Well, I don't know what's so special about it.
I don't know.
Sounds.
It's
Not
yeah.
It's a low fat, no cholesterol.
Hey, listen, if it gets to the point that's
now
what
you're
we have
talking
to
to me.
eat, we
So
might have to.
it's cultivated cell-based or lab-grown protein. They say it's genuine animal meat, including seafood and organ meats that's produced by cultivating animal cells directly. I can't wrap my brain around this. Seriously.
Well, I need to do a taste test.
It does say that it eliminates the need to raise and farm animals for food. And so there's like a whole subset of you're actually protecting animals and so on. I don't know.
So wait, they just grow the meat? It's not like a live chicken?
No.
Oh, I don't think so.
Yeah, they acquire and
think
bank
so?
stem cells from an animal.
Really?
So yeah, I'm not really convinced. Did we
That's
talk about the Honduras prison situation?
That's when I go vegan. I think that's a lot of people would go vegan, I think.
That's funny.
I'll just eat
Yeah,
pasta
for
the rest of my life. That's fine.
No, it's pretty crazy.
Sorry, what were you saying?
Did we mention the Honduran prison riot yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard you talking about it, but yeah, that was sad.
Yeah. So at least 46 women were killed in a women's prison.
What?
That
was a lot.
Yep. In Honduras after rival gangs went in there and started fighting, and some people were burnt to death. Some people were shot and killed. And believe it or not, there's actually children that live in these prisons as well. So sad.
That's very sad.
Yeah. Anyway, I got to run. You guys have a fantastic day. Not here tomorrow, by the way.
Why not?
Going away.
Cool.
I'll send you some details.
Okay. Bye.
Awesome.
See you Monday.
All right, folks, let's do it. Just a couple more seconds. What a beautiful day today. How are you guys doing? Talking minimum wage today. Important topic.
Bigger, better, bolder. The cold, hard truth is taking talk to the next level. Right here on Bobo 89.1 FM, Cayman's Community Radio.
We are still spilling the tea.
And committed to being part of the change that Cayman so desperately needs. Join Sandy Hill weekdays from 7:30 a.m. for Premier Access, Cayman Voices, Truthful Thursdays, and much more. Cayman's #1 talk show is now bigger, better, bolder, and more than talk. Getting results with hot topics, consumer reports, court exposés, and more.
I've come to set the record straight. I've come to shine the light on you. Let me introduce myself. I am the cold, hard truth.
Now, from the CMR studio in Grand Cayman,
Live, direct.
it's the cold, hard truth. Now, join the conversation on 345-936-2626.
That number again is
345-936-2626.
All right. Good morning, beautiful folks. It is Thursday. Can't believe it. Wow. I'm just flying by. But we're here for you. We're here for this absolutely gorgeous day. We got a couple special guests that are going to be joining the program this morning, including a discussion on minimum wage. Now, listen, we've been waiting for a minute for this one. So make sure y'all get your coffee ready, get everything ready, and tune in. I'm just pulling up our minimum wage slides. Yes. Honey chill. Let's talk about a few things before our guests. We also have Premier Access today as well. So, hold on a second. Where did I put the minimum wage slides? Here we go. I think it went in this folder. Is it this one? No. Is that one? No. Is that one? No. All right. Hold on. Let me see where I've managed to save this file here today. Okay, so I did that. I clicked on download. Oh, they've sent it to me as an MP4 video file. What? No. Okay, this is weird. I think I just want it as a PDF. Yes. Okay, let me download it as a PDF. Kind of weird. All right. Let's see if that works. Yes, honey child. You gotta know about so many different little things and pay attention in this world. All right, let's try that again. We're gonna click on slides. And then let me see. Oh yeah, there we go. I think that's gonna work. Okay. Looks like my little brain managed to sort that one out. Good morning, Miss Vernita. Buenos dias to Miss Daisy. Speaking of my little brain, let me not forget to send out some links to you all. Happy day. Somebody says, spend your money on me, huh? I ain't got no money to be spending on people, honey child. You better try and save your little money. All right, so let me just see here. So a couple things before our guests come on. We do have the premier who's coming on. So get ready for that. And then we have some people from the Minimum Wage Committee who's also going to be joining us as well. So we got a lot to talk about. But there was this appeal. I briefly mentioned it on 106 this morning as part of the Spilling the Tea. No radio. Not sure why not. We should be connected. No radio today. I don't know what that means. All right, let me double check because we should be on the radio. Everybody should be hearing just fine. And nobody else has complained about no radio, so I suspect we're perfectly fine. That's normally the test. Oh, hold on. That's normally the litmus test. Mhm. All right. Let me see. Let me see. Can I hear myself? What's going on? I can't hear myself for true. Message check. Hey, you're not on and working on that right now. Just give me 2 minutes. Oh, okay. There you go. Well, little did I know. Thank you for letting me know. Normally I would have gotten a million messages by now saying, hey, what's going on? Okay, Chuck is on the job. He'll sort it out. All right. So in the meantime, let's go ahead and do some morning greetings then while we're waiting on that. Because there is something that I want to say, and I want to make sure radio listeners hear this as well. So the beautiful Miss Daisy is here. Is that you in that profile picture, Daisy? That looks so pretty. Luis, good morning. How are you? First Lady Jayanne is here. Stephen joining us from the UK. What's up, Stephen? How's it going? He says, good morning, beautiful people. Thank you, Stephen. Wee Wee has it locked. Hello, Miss Wee Wee. How are you, my dear? She says, good morning, Cayman Islands. Diamond Princess says, good morning, everyone. Have a safe and blessed day. Pleasant good morning to you, Evelyn. How are you? Natasha, she says, morning, Sandy. Happy Thursday. Yes, this is like Friday part 1. We're sliding right into Friday. By the way, I'm not going to be here tomorrow. So I am traveling over the next week. And tomorrow is my travel day. But I've got a treat for you all. You still tune in, 7:30 sharp. Because I went to this Cayman Old Timers meeting. So this is Mr. Rennie Barnes. Every first Saturday of the month, he gets some seniors together and they meet at a facility that he has there off of Seymour Drive. And he treats them to, little snacks. And, they get to sit down and reminisce and enjoy each other's company. But from my perspective, oh my gosh, it is a wealth of information. So just amazing, to be quite frank. Okay, I'm back, he says. All right, live and direct on radio. Just a little glitch. Nothing's perfect. So I went to the Cayman Old Timers down by Uncle Rennie. And it is such an amazing, oh my gosh. Make sure you guys tune in tomorrow morning. Talk about history. And they remember so many things. Some of these people are like in their 80s and their memories are still sharp as a tack. They remember everything. And remember this person down by Galleon Beach and the stories, and I don't filter anything. I think you guys know that already. So you might hear some names dropped and you're like, ooh, I didn't know. They don't say anything bad about people. They're like, oh, remember she came here and she got married to so-and-so. And you understand how like certain, non-traditional Cayman names were introduced because people came here and integrated and got married and, became part of the community. But it is so interesting. Like, I didn't know much about how we used to bury our dead. And they talked about that this last time. I was like, wow, that is so interesting, so fascinating. They talk about where Smith Road got its name. Do y'all even know? I had no clue. I was just like, what? History is just, oh my God. How the airport was built, where the people came from that built our very first airport. So although I'm not going to be live tomorrow, I've got this nuggets over an hour worth of them just talking and interacting with each other. Some of it gets very personal. There's a lady who was talking about her father and how he died and how her brother died. It's just, oh my God, it's heart-wrenching. But those are the stories that even someone who is in their 80s, they were impacted by these events. The death of her father still remains something that is embedded in her brain. And she's like, telling this whole story about how her father wasn't really dead. And I mean, it's just so riveting. Oh my gosh. It's like the best novel, except you're watching it and you're listening to it from her seniors. So make sure you tune in for that. So the travel days, I'm away for a week. The days that I travel, it's not possible to do the show live because I got to get to the airport. But during the rest of the week, next week, Monday through Thursday, the plan is to have a short form show. So this is a little bit of like work-life balance. So I know you guys hate it when I'm not here and when I travel. It's inevitable that it's going to happen at some point, right? But where possible, I can and will travel with my equipment and still have the show. So I'm going away. It's the same time zone. In October, I'm actually taking a really big trip for 2 weeks, and it's a totally different time zone. So I'm going to do like a series of the best of segments, like, pre-recorded. But it's more difficult when I'm in a different time zone. So like if 7:30 is actually 3:00 in the afternoon, obviously by then my day has started and I'm out doing tours or whatever, depending on where I'm vacationing, I'm doing stuff, right? So October will be a little bit different, 2 weeks in October. But this 1 week away, I'm going to, for most of the days, still have a live show. It'll just be a shortened show. So I think I'm going to do between an hour and a half in the mornings because that work-life balance I'm talking about, I got to do stuff with family. I got to get up and do excursions and whatever. I can't be doing a talk show for 3 hours while I have a husband and a 6-year-old there waiting on me going, when are we going to get on the road? Mm-hmm. Yes, honey Joe. So the show must go on. And we'll definitely, have it next week. So I'm traveling with my spare board. I got to pack microphones and all that sort of good stuff. So hopefully it'll go off without a hitch, as long as the internet's good where I'll be. Good morning to Damaris joining us from New York, from Queens. Carmelie is here. Alejandro, I don't know what you're saying yuck about. Oh, the meat. Yeah, they have this lab-grown meat situation. No, sir, they can keep that meat. Like I said, push comes to shove, I got a lot of chickens running around the neighborhood, which I'm hoping that y'all will come and get anyway. Come and collect them because, boy, they can make some noise. Oh, all the cackling and cockadoodling and oh, my gosh. Good morning to Miss Iva. Charlotte is here. Felicia, Miss Lulu. Yep, radio's all sorted out now, thanks to Chuck. Marshall joining us from Columbia, South Carolina. What are you doing in Columbia? Taking a little vacation? So Daisy confirms that beautiful profile picture is her. Wow. How gorgeous is that? Miss Morna, hello. Aliano, Yasmin, how are you guys doing? Thank you, thank you. Alejandra says, loving the purple lipstick this morning. I feel it for who getting royally scolded this morning. I don't think anybody's going to get scolded this morning. We're talking about minimum wage. The premier is going to join us. Oh, I'm going to do a little bit of scolding. I will. Natasha says, I'm looking forward to the voices again. Where is Rennie located that we can go and see the artifacts in history? Oh my gosh. So he's down Seymour Drive on Barnes. I think it's called Barnes Road. It's actually named after the family. So the Barnes family. So I can get you some details, but it's every first Saturday. They meet in the afternoon. And I'm telling you, it is such a treat. Take your seniors. Elderly people still love to go out and get stuff done. So, this is a wonderful event for them to attend. And, they get a little snack and whatever, but the camaraderie between them, the sharing of stories, oh yeah, well, I remember when, so-and-so lived there and Miss Glita and this and that. I mean, listen, this is Cayman history. at its best. We'll actually have him on one day to share more about his old timer Cayman monthly meetings. I'm actually going to sponsor. I mightn't do it every month, but I'm going to start to offer some of my services in terms of food for the seniors, because I can cook them a little something now. They're not going to be going hungry. Them people used to good food. So I was thinking about it the last time that I was there. I'm going to try to get them some radios as well. So I did promise them some of the radios now that we're coming into hurricane season and stuff like that. Plus they can tune into this show in the mornings. And I'm going to sponsor some of their shows. And look at Jim. He took the idea right out of my head. He says, take the young people there. Cayman history is being lost, and the young people. That's right, because these old people know their history. But the young people have no clue, including myself. I'm not terribly young anymore, but I'm younger. And I got to tell you, there's so much of this that I'm like, wow, that's how that happened. Oh my gosh. You all make sure you tune in tomorrow morning. It is fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. The only thing is, because they were all kind of talking at once, I had to run and give this one a mic and then run to the next one, give that one a mic. So it did take a minute for me to kind of, oh my gosh. I feel like giving y'all a little sneak peek. Y'all want a little sneak peek? Can I give you just a little snippet of what you're in for tomorrow? That's how excited I am about this segment. Let me see if I can share just a little snippet with you guys. The stories are just amazing. Okay. I'm gonna pull it in just to show you a little nugget. Oh my gosh, Mr. Godfrey, he's on my interview list for sure. He knows so much stuff. He's gonna be my next Cayman Voices interview, but listen to this little snippet.
Immigration is now, that was our hospital.
Oh my God. Where immigration is now, that's where the hospital was. And they talked about how we didn't even have a proper morgue and how the kids didn't have a play field. Oh my gosh, you guys, the early days of protesting in Cayman, this segment was off the chain amazing. Seriously.
And they used to be cooking outside.
Uh-huh.
They had 3 sticks in the ground. And that way they used to cook on. You imagine that. Mm-hmm. And very few people know this was the hospital here. And right in front of the hospital was our dump.
What?
Our dump. But how they got that, how they got that hole there.
Imagine. The dump was right next to the hospital? My gosh, have we come a long way? I mean, it is just...
Huh?
Where was the hospital at that time?
Right by where the immigration is now. Yeah, and how they got that hole there, they dug marl from there to fix the road. Then after that, but nobody had anything to dump. Only thing anything had to dump was when the Americans were held on the base.
We had Americans here on a base. There's so much history that we don't know, people. Yes, like where the library is now. Apparently there's some kind of fort or base or something. What?
Pam, I remember one time it rained, and that hole was full up with water. Steve came up there because y'all was staying in that area. Right? And we playing around that dump, and Steve, he fall down. The whole got, and what thing happened? Your mother, Mr. Omar, come up and beat him.
Oh boy, back in those days, you got beaten for everything, honey Jill. So that was a story about Steve McField falling in a hole. And then the woman he's talking about, Irma Barnes, would have been my grandmother, went and beat Steve for falling in a hole. I'm like, maybe he just needed a hug after he fell in the hole. But anyway, there's so much connectivity between Caymanians. It is just amazing. So when I hear him mention stories about, okay, this person, that's my cousin, and, my grandmother was involved in this storyline. And I mean, this is part of who we are as a people. If you miss the one with Renford Rennie Barnes, it's on our social media pages. go back and listen to it. Now, you guys will probably know he's my uncle. And I learned so much about family history that I had no idea. So you guys know that my grandfather is from Jamaica, but apparently he left as a very young man, like 13 years old, I'm told, and he never went back to Jamaica. So by that time, there was already land there, and he was like, just sell the land, which it took forever. I think it recently got sold a couple years ago, but he didn't have any interest. He was traveling. He was a trained chef. He went to Belize, which now makes sense when I look at my DNA results and I see connections in Belize. I'm like, I wonder how that happened. He was traveling all over the world. He was in Panama. He spoke fluent Spanish. So there's just these amazing and interesting connections to us. And one of my cousins was actually saying to me, she said, you know what? I mean, when you think about it, we could have not ended up in Cayman. And I didn't really ever think about that. But I was like, oh, yeah, that's kind of true, because he was traveling so much. And my grandmother actually lived in Belize with him for a while. I'm not sure if she lived in Panama. But although, she was Caymanian, I mean, what if he said, let's just stay in Belize? Next thing you know, I would have been Belizean, next generation. So it's just, super, super interesting. And apparently we still have a cousin who lives in, oh gosh, my cousin was telling me about this cousin. He actually lives, so this is what my cousin said, that Charles Barnes and his father's name is Napoleon. And Napoleon was a German man. And she's like, look up Seaford Town, Jamaica. The hill on the property we sold is called Barnes Hill. All this stuff like you just didn't know. So, no one has lived on it for over 100 years, not even squatters. And then she goes on to talk about the fact that, and I'll show you a picture of him. The fact that we have a cousin who lives, so Orma Sadie Barnes, Nee Macfield, father. So we actually have a picture of him. Lemuel Richard Macfield. By the way, they got his name misspelled, but back in those days, when you typeset something, if you got it wrong, well, it probably just stayed that way, right? So this was of real particular interest to me. Let me see if I can show y'all some of these old time pictures, honey child. But Uncle Rennie has a display there, collected like newspapers that I had not even heard of before, all sort of historical stuff that is just absolutely fascinating. So this picture, let me show y'all this picture now. Hold on. Yikes. Okay, so this is Lemuel Richard Macfield. Right? So he was my grandmother's father. So my cousin says they often refer to him as Pa. And this is where Steve Macfield and Denzel got their love for white from, because they always, if you know Denzel Barnes and Steve Macfield, they love to wear white. They love to wear linen. They like to dress up. So his youngest son, AKA Big Man, lives in Malaysia. I was like, so we still have someone on that side that's alive? I was shocked. And he's the one that moved us to Maryland, which became Mary Street. This is just, listen, amazing. And at the time, that was seen as like a step up area, right? So this, what would he be then? He would be a cousin if he's my grandmother's father's son. Oh God, what does that make him? These genealogy things always tax my brain a little bit. Whatever. That would be uncle? I don't know what he is. Anyway, apparently he's a retired teacher, never got married, no kids. And he came during COVID, which I had no idea about, and he decided to go back. Now here's where Cayman history even has a recent element to it. Where they're building right now, where Flowers is extending Cricket Square, that was his property, and he sold it to Flowers, which is where they're now doing the big building. A couple $1 million in his pocket. So apparently his name is Richard. So incredibly fascinating. And then this is my grandfather from Jamaica. Yes, sir. But he left, evidently, according to my cousin, at a very young age. I think she said he was like 13 years old, and he left and actually never really went back to Jamaica. So, such interesting things. So yes, the grandfather left Jamaica when he was like 13 years old and never went back. In his will, he wanted the land to be sold in Jamaica. And we have an aunt that was born in Belize. Then he worked in Panama, fluent in Spanish. He worked in Cuba at the US base. And he was very much an entrepreneur. Maybe that's where I got my little entrepreneurial spirit from. So he was always into, he had multiple businesses. If you listen to the interview with Rennie, he talked about how he brought the first pool table to Cayman. Now we think about that. We're like, oh, that's not a big deal. Back in those days, that would have been a really big deal. And for a Black Jamaican man to come to Cayman and start all these industries, bringing a pool table so people could have a little entertainment, started, the Domino's Club. Back in those days, people got to travel playing dominoes and stuff. It was a wonderful opportunity for them. First school buses. I mean, it's just, I was so enthralled by the whole interview because it has obviously a personal element to it where I really learned a lot about my own family history. And so many of us just don't know. So, absolutely fascinating. So good morning to Mr. Amelia. Johan is here. She says we need another show with Auntie Sandy and Wendy Ledger as a guest. That was a quality debate and real conscious dialogue about real issues, national issues plus journalism. Wendy's so busy. I think in the mornings, that's when she gets up and she does a lot of her writing. So Wendy's kind of like semi-retired, to be honest. You guys might notice there's certain things that she doesn't do anymore. When I was going to Miami on Monday morning, someone was on a flight with me and they said, oh my God, you've really taken over media and, Wendy's hardly writing anymore. And I said, well, I think in all fairness to Wendy, she's in a little bit of early retirement mode. She's kind of semi-retired, right? So she writes on the environmental stuff and what she cares about, 1 or 2 court cases. And that's pretty much it. I don't think she even does government press releases anymore. She just doesn't care. So retirement mode has set in. You kind of wonder what will happen to Cayman News Service, but who knows? Aliano, Miss Dean, good morning. Patricia's here, so good to see you. Nathina asking about her radio. Did you request one before? They should all be there, and I'm encouraging you guys to go pick up your radios. I posted on social media. They've been there for weeks now, folks. Please go collect your radios. If you requested a radio, you can go and look at the picture, and it has your name on it, your telephone number, which I try to blur out the numbers. But y'all need to go collect your radios. Otherwise, next week, we're going to reallocate them to someone who actually needs a radio. Don't request something and then don't go for it. Look all these radios that are there. We got Wendy, David, Tracy, Venetia, Elizabeth, Miss Erna Worms, Melissa, Evelyn, Sophia, Rhonda, Robinson, Belinda. Go pick up your radios, Miss Jan, or we will give them to somebody else who really needs them. Did you hear what Mr. Godfrey was saying? How back in those days, yes, the dump was right next to the hospital, but there was no, he's like, we weren't throwing anything away. They were using everything. He's like, only when the tourists came here did they need a dump. I'm like, wow, isn't that amazing? So Louise says, so my grandfather from my mother's side is from Jamaica also. Yeah, we have a lot of connections around the region, folks. Trust me. Jamaica, Honduras, Belize, even Panama, Cuba. I told you we've got relatives in Cuba. They refuse to come back, honey child, because they're not used to the hustle factor. They're like, no, we're used to getting milk every month from the Cuban government. We don't have to want to work for it and whatever. I'm like, child, I don't know what kind of life that is. But anyway, the government will give you milk until the age of 5 or whatever. You get a milk provision, and socialist governments. And then an allocation of rice per month or whatever. And, after the economy started to go down and then the Soviet Union fell apart, Cuba didn't have the backing of these other communist countries anymore, it became very, very difficult for them to sustain a lot of these social programs, because really it was Russia who wanted to have an interest in this part of the world, why they were supporting the Cuban government. So I tell them, you can have anything in this world you want, which you can get up and work for it. Get off your bum and hit the, get to moving. All right. So here's something else of interest that was in the news. Kind of a story, but I'm going to try to be as succinct as possible. Thank you, guys. I popped into somewhere yesterday to grab a salad. They didn't have the salad I wanted, but got to talk to some of the people there. And one gentleman who was in line said, "Oh my God, I loved the show." Thank you, Sophia, for confirming you picked up your radios. He said, "I love the show about the headaches, the migraines." He really appreciated that segment, because so many of us know people or sufferers ourselves. Thankfully, I'm not, thank God, knock on wood. But we know people who suffer from migraines. And so that was a really, really important conversation. But there's so many things that come up on this show. I've got a lady now who is a qualified school teacher. She's doing additional training here because she was living overseas. 23 years of experience, and she cannot get a job in the Cayman Islands school system, particularly with government. I cannot believe it. But this woman is well-spoken. She was teaching year 1, 2, like kindergarten, the younger kids. And she says she keeps applying. She has all this experience, and yet having such a hard time actually getting a job is really making her feel a particular way. We're going to talk about that next week, because honestly, I'm trying to wrap my brain around. She keeps applying and is told, "Oh no, we don't have anything, you're not suitable for any jobs," whatever. She's like, there are people with less experience than her, not even Caymanians, who are getting into these positions. So she's really confused. Now, I don't know how education does it. I don't know how they hire people. I don't know what their criteria is, but it seems like something is a little bit amiss here. And so I'm looking into that situation over the next couple of days a little bit further. So yesterday, this appeal came up. You guys may have seen it. So this is a guy who was convicted for child pornography. He was actually appealing his sentencing. First of all, he only got 33 months. And with good behavior, he's only going to serve 60% of that. If I were him, I would just sit in prison and think hard on what you did to actually end up there. But naturally, these guys never seem to see the wickedness and the wrongness in their ways. So this is him. His name is, let me just get his name for you. Cason Ricardo Holness. He was convicted and sentenced at 33 months in prison for 3 offenses involving child pornography. Went to the Court of Appeal, where they dismissed his appeal about his sentence. He was granted an application for leave to appeal it. So in other words, they allowed the appeal to go forward so they could hear the arguments about his sentence, which was imposed in the Grand Court last year. However, the Court of Appeal, while it granted the leave for the appeal, actually dismissed the appeal itself. The judgment, which was released earlier this month, stated that offenses of possession or transmission of indecent images of children are not harmless crimes, and real children are sexually abused in order to produce the images. And this is one of those situations where I was directly involved in this, because I actually saw the video. Someone sent it to me. Oh my God. Can I just tell you all something? Listen, people send me a lot and I see a lot, right? So I'm not easily impacted by things that I see. I mean, I see car accident photos, all this kind of stuff. I try to disassociate myself, like I can look at it and not really be like, get emotional. But what I'm going to tell y'all now is, when I saw this video, it is horrific. It was a baby, an infant being raped. I could not believe my eyes. I felt physically sick to my stomach. I was like, who does this? If you believe in duppies and monsters, listen, they're not people who walk around in darkness at night. These are people that you probably know. These people are disgusting. Listen, the execution chamber would be too good for this man who was doing this. I was shocked and flabbergasted at what I was seeing. And then I was shocked and flabbergasted that this guy, Kaysen, would actually share this on his social media platform. So immediately I contacted the police and I said, listen, this was back in 2020. I said, this is what I just saw. Here's the link, but you know the police child, you gotta hand them the case with a bow tie on it, right? So they're like, oh, we need you to download the video. I was like, me? Download this on my computer? Even that to me is like, I felt like this has got to be some kind of, what? But they couldn't access it and they don't have Facebook. I'm like, well, what? Police don't have Facebook? Anyway, I said, all right. Downloaded it for them, put it on a jump drive so that then they could have the chain, because, you know, they got to have a chain of evidence of where you got it from and you got to give them a statement, all this kind of stuff. This was, listen, 33 months, this should be 33 years that you see something like this. And I don't know what the attraction would be that you would actually want to share this on your social media pages. That my immediate first thought is this poor child needs to be rescued. And whoever's sharing this for any degree of pleasure, you are part of the problem. You are a disgusting individual, right? The reason why this stuff is produced in this way is to attract people like Kaysen. And I don't know who he family to. I don't know who these people are, but it's to attract people like him to share it. And that's the whole network of pedophiles and child pornography. And, you know, this is where they get their kicks. Listen to me. So I don't get involved in sharing how we may or may not assist the police, because we assist the police all the time, because I believe in trying to follow the law, right? So I don't really, there's no bragging rights to be had. But in this case, I'm telling you that I am proud to say that at least one video was taken down. One man in this jurisdiction was charged for sharing child pornography, and at least he's going to spend a little bit of time in jail. I'm hoping that he's not Caymanian so that he can get deported afterwards. But with that last name, he probably is. I don't know. My God. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Mrs. Hill. So you're talking about sharing pornography.
Not just pornography, sharing child pornography.
Okay, we getting it. You know, old I can forget.
Yeah.
But are you what about the production? Was that done here in this country?
Well, I think that they were sort of working with other agencies to try to figure out the source of the video. And I think that it's fair to say that it was not made in this jurisdiction. It was a Caucasian man that was raping this poor baby. And I don't know if they know where, because a lot of times it's very, very difficult to trace, you know.
Because they sanitize it.
What do you mean?
You get rid of all.
Well, I don't even know that that's the case. It's just that there's so many people in this world. I'm hoping that they found him, but I don't know that that is actually the case.
Okay, one last question, and I can leave you alone. For something as horrific as this, do you know how it is that this jurisdiction, Cayman, handles these things internationally, like sharing, Interpol, you know, FBI, blah, 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 blah. Do we share this information?
Yes, well, that is exactly how it came to their attention and how they were able to kind of flush out like some of it. So as far as I know, they did work with international agencies to, report this at a different level to try and find the perpetrator of the man who actually created the video. And now we don't have any updates because that's not in this jurisdiction. So we don't actually have any updates on what happened and if this child is now safe or, it's just, I mean, just thinking about it makes me so incredibly upset. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
And 33 months for sharing.
That's it. Like he should have gotten way more than that.
But I hope they chemically castrate him at least for this little jurisdiction that they go over him. Because we need Caymanians on the bench. We need Caymanians on that bench that would get emotional over a situation like this. This is no less than emotionality. Oh my God!
Yeah, it was horrible. I mean, I can't even describe to you guys what I saw.
You don't need to describe.
It's just very upsetting. Like
factually, it is horrid enough.
Yeah,
and 33 months. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was.
The judges are looking and get plenty for the money.
Oh my God. It was horrible. Really,
I remember sitting in law school the first day for the professor to introduce us to where we were going to. Yeah. And then to make further money. And it's treated like kings and queens. The rest of the public don't know the royal treatment judges get. At least in this country. And that's what that's the reward. 33 months. You mean that's all the law requires? Because you should be pitching the book, the gavel, everything after this. So if the judges could do no better because their hands are tied.
Well, Johan makes a point here. He said that there should be a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years for these monsters.
That's all I'm getting to, but I'm a little long, Johan, Mr. Maver Street. I'm a little long, but that's exactly where I was going.
Yeah, there should be minimum sentences. Yes, thank you, caller.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
In lieu of our legislators or MPs not really caring enough about this subject to implement minimum sentences, I mean, they can do it for gun crime, so why can't they do it for, child porn and child assault and stuff like this? I don't get it. To me, it's a no-brainer. But as Johan says, successive MPs over the last 30 years have not amended laws to address this issue, but amend many other laws, but not this. Nobody wants to touch this. And we have more women now who are MPs than ever before. And for me, this is a sticking point as a woman, because I can see how men detach themselves. Men is like, well, if it's not my child, they normally don't care too much about what's happening to other people's children. But I can tell you that it is shocking that, a woman and women in general are not in an uproar about this situation. Somebody sent me a video. I'm going to try to play this because talking about child abuse and child neglect, there's so much of it that happens around the world. Cayman is no exception in many different forms. I want y'all to listen to this. This is very, very heartbreaking. But sometimes we need to hear what, in the voice of children, what they are going through, right? So that we can then be their voices, because there's only so much that a child can do to protect themselves. It is our moral obligation to protect all children, regardless of who they are. Look at this video that somebody shared with me just this morning that was on TikTok.
Of what you did to me. Why did you lock me up? Why did you beat me and my sister up and make her open my head? You didn't feed me for 3 days. You were mean to me and my sister. You put tape over my eyes and my mouth, and you put a sock in my mouth. Where am I? You didn't give us a chance to let us out. I should be in 6th grade, but I'm in 3rd grade because you wouldn't let me go to school. I'm in 4th because you wouldn't feed me. I can never see mommy again because what you did.
My God.
David, did you have anything else to say to anybody else? Okay.
This is for you, Mom. I miss you. Why didn't you let us out? Why didn't you listen to the grandmother? I forgive you for everything, but I can't trust you anymore.
You can imagine, folks. This is for the benefit of our radio listeners. Let me describe what's happening here. So, victim impact statements in the U.S. are often read by the victims themselves in court at the sentencing stage. So these are children. This kid is saying he's supposed to be in the 6th grade, but he's only in the 3rd grade because his own mother allowed the grandmother to abuse these children so severely and not even allow them to go to school. So you can hear that he has a bit of a speech impediment. And, you know, that he is obviously emotionally damaged, but he's talking about the physical damage that they've received. Their growth has been impacted. They have like a growth stunt because of the abuse, the malnutrition, the lack of food. And this is the mother now sitting there being brought to tears by the words of her own children, but yet did nothing to protect them from her mother, who apparently was the real monster in this situation. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, her tears are wasted. And these children are explaining in their own voice, you know, what happened to them. Poor little kid is trying to read this, and he's supposed to be in the 6th grade, and you know, now in the 3rd grade. Obviously, that has so many implications for his little life. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Hey, Auntie Sandy, it's Johan Moxham. How you doing?
Hey, Johan.
I just put up some comments thing, but I thought I'd call in. I just want to say, you know, we laugh, we joke, you know, people think you're a variety of different things, but I just want to personally thank you for everything that you continue to do, because you've been on this cause for a very, very, very long time, and you're the only person that is prepared to call it what it is and to talk about it and admit that these situations exist in the Cayman Islands, because we have so many people that pretend, well, you know, you can't say anything about it because it's connected to this one or that one. You have been consistent with this. We are lucky that we have a champion like you, and I don't always agree with you and you don't always agree with me, which is fine. That's how life is, but you are consistent, and I'm just shocked as shit when I hear stories like this week after week, month after month, year after year, and somebody's going to go, our thoughts and prayers are with those children, or we feel bad that this happened. Listen, if you're an elected official and there's 19 elected officials, how in the hell do you collect a paycheck every month when you know that this country is in dire need of sentencing reform, more importantly, resources to help those that are impacted by or victims of these sort of heinous crimes? You know, we're talking about the child pornography. How in the world does that person get 33 months? How is that even possible in the Cayman Islands that happens? You know why? It's because everybody wants to protect somebody and they don't want this thing to come close to home. But incest, all of those sort of things are commonplace. It's been in our history. It's been in our communities. It's taboo, but we pretend that it isn't happening. Yet the public will be upset for 5 minutes when you address the issue in public. But I've always been disgusted by this sort of behavior. But I'll tell you what, it's not until you have a kid that you understand, or a child, that you understand the lengths that you will go to protect, to get revenge for, and to settle whatever score, because the system is failing us. 19 MLAs get a check. During COVID, they changed the laws every week, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. Whenever they want to do something, they have the fortitude, they have the ability to go ahead and get it done. This is as important. Gun crime and having mandatory sentencing for gun crimes, or access to guns and bullets, that is just as important. But for us to continue to pretend that, oh, this just happens to some people, or to poor people, or to black people, or to white people, this impacts everybody, but we get the people that we deserve when we go to the polls, because how can they come to you and tell you that they care for you and that they're working for you and that they're fighting for you when they don't do shit? Okay? If we don't have and Sandy, again, to your credit, you are the first person to go, yo, we need a public sexual offenders registry. How hard can that be? I would like to know if there was any registered pervert or convict or anything in my neighborhood, so I can perhaps be better aware instead of rumor and innuendo. How hard can that be, and why can't our elected officials, the Attorney General's chamber, and other people that are collecting their money every month gladly just do your job and do what's in the best interest to protect people? Because things are going to go sideways when somebody messes with the wrong person's child, and that person loses all sense of reality and they just focus in on vengeance and protecting theirs. I'm not emotional. I'm not upset. I'm just shocked that we go and we pray for everything. People come to your funeral, man, that's so sad that happened. Oh my God, you know, my heart and thoughts are with you. Do your job. Do your job, and people stop voting for people that don't give a shit about you. Okay? If they can't do
just
right
watch
by
your
this-
language for me, please.
Sorry. Just very pissed off at the fact that we're having this conversation every single time. I know kids that have been impacted, and you sit back and you hope and you go, man, maybe the authorities will do something. Maybe the authorities will do something. Maybe the authorities will do something. Sandy, nothing ever happens. When a man can get 33 months for child porn, what do you think goes through his head whenever he sees your kid, my kid, or anybody else's kid? But they can buck up on the wrong person, then it's going to be our fault. Public officials, MPs, do your job, earn the trust of the public, do something of substance. Mandatory minimum sentencing for such heinous crimes is a must. Pretend to care about the people and actually put your words and your thoughts and your fake prayers into action by passing relevant laws, all of them. I don't care who's my friend or not my friend in government. For successive decades, we have been failed by people that hoodwink us into thinking that they're working for us. If you can't fix this, you don't care about anything or anybody. But if it was your kid, you would use whatever powers were available to make it right. Make it right for everybody. Because I'm telling you this, I love mine more than I love myself. Anybody with a harm, a hair on their head, I'm sorry. I'm not Johan anymore. I'm that monster that basically needs to dole out what is best described as vengeance, even if it don't make no sense, because you can't trust the system to protect us. If they were interested in protecting us and doing the right thing, they would have done it a long time ago.
Yeah.
That's
And
all
I
I gotta
mean,
say.
we have, thank you so much, Johan, for those comments. And folks, we have an attorney general who finally, years ago, admitted that we do need a child sexual offender registry. It's just that they can't figure it out. They can't figure out how to do it. And I'm thinking, you guys are supposed to be some of the smartest people in the world, or so you claim. You've got all this collective brain power. You've got resources available to you from overseas that you can tap into. And you can't figure out how to implement a child a sex offenders registry for a small jurisdiction. I'm just flabbergasted by this. We have 3 callers on the line. Denny, you're up first. Try to make it as brief for me as you possibly can.
Morning.
Morning.
Is it possible that the reason why we can't get a sex offenders registry is because they're trying to figure out whether they might have to list a prince on the registry?
Why they might have to list a
Prince.
Prince?
Yeah, prince.
I mean, I don't think that's the problem here. He wasn't living in this jurisdiction, but
No. Listen carefully. If activities with
Miss Darlene, I think somebody's got their radio on. Just turn your radio off in the background for me, please. Yeah, Denny, go ahead.
If this mentality is at the level of those who are called, quote, royal, end of quote, what makes you think it's going to be easy to get what you want done? You see the difficulty? There's too many people in society that look up to people like the royal who actually don't have our best interest at heart. They're shady characters that's causing this. that's preventing this from happening.
Mm-hmm.
Very shady characters at high level. And unfortunately, the people we rely on look up to people above them. So,
all right, Denny.
That's why
Appreciate
we're
it.
where we are.
All right, Miss Charlene, I think that's you. You're next.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning again.
Good morning.
I was outside, so I didn't get all of Mr. Johan's contribution. But when I stepped inside, I heard him giving his own little spiel and yada yada yo. It's not a war about this, Mr. Johan. You were so generous because I know you can do better than that. This is now a need. This is now a need, and before a jury of your peers, when you guys take the law into your own hands for this issue, and I don't advocate that lightly, but I call on the Premier, Mr. Premier. I call on Mr. Kurtivitz. I call on Sir Aldin. I'm calling on two people that are like Mr. Roy McTaggart and Mr. Hugh. Gentlemen, you may be across the aisle, one dressed in blue, pink, and purple dots, but this is Cayman. This is my soil, and all of you claim it for your own glory. Let's claim it now for the vulnerable. A child cannot help itself. And I am peeved to know that the international community will have an opportunity, rightly or wrongly, so misinformed, not quite right, not exactly like that, to go down and say, well, Cayman mix up in something like this, raping of a child like that on camera. No, we need to get our act together. We do need to get our act together.
Yes.
We are, they say we are.
You know what I find amazing, Charlene, is no one, I've never even heard an MP want to talk about this. We've seen cases, and of course the excuse is always, sub judice, it's before the courts, even when it's concluded and a person is sentenced, like this young man with this child pornography. There've been other child pornography cases, right? There's been child molestation and abuse cases. I never see them making any sort of a public statement after the fact.
Well, we're making a public statement for them now. Elections is coming up. We're making a public statement now. Get this on the table. Get this into conversation. Since you don't want glory, this is a glory moment for you. I don't want to call them fools because they deserve respect. The Bible says to respect them.
And another listener to the program has just said,
get this on the table before the next election campaign.
Yes.
Because how I hollers on the phone, I hollers at people, and it mightn't be 100%, but I can get some action sometime. I shall be. None of you should want this to emanate from our soil. It is no more than for the face of the country, let alone the vulnerable, the children. Don't ask them about if it was their child, Mr. Johan.
It shouldn't matter. Listen, I've been talking about this for a betterment of 20 plus years, way before I had children. I mean, to me, it doesn't. I mean, obviously, when you have children, you always think about, oh my God, like you put in context, right? Oh my God, what if this is my child? But even before I had children, it was no question that we need to protect children. They need to have legislative protection in place. That's where it begins.
Get this on the table. I call on her by name. And look here, I don't know.
Binks is saying that maybe we need to go and protest in front of LA. Listen, we have people in this country. This is where I become extremely, dismayed and shocked. We have people in this country protesting roads. We have people who want to protest, LGBTQ adults wanting to live their own lives that have nothing to do with children. But those same people, those same so-called Christians have never once got up and spoke out about child molestation and abuse in this country. And they're not protecting children either in our churches and in our institutions, right? We see the Duggar family, this 19 plus million children that they had, bunch of pedophiles and abusers in that family. Some of the same people that were supporting their religious beliefs of having all these children that you can't even afford and just letting them go to be abused by their siblings and so on. We actually had them coming. We had that guy coming to this country standing at a platform with these same Christian groups. The former premier, Alden McLaughlin, got up and stood and spoke next to this man. And the things that they preach and what they believe in is absolutely egregious. And they do not care about the protection of children. But yet our leaders stood with the likes of them, basically indoctrination, child molesters, and they won't fix the legislation. We can't get child offenders registry. We can't get minimum sentences for child molesters. It's like what? It's like I feel like I live in an alternative universe here. What is going on?
Exactly. But I called the names this morning, and Caymanians, every one of you, generational Caymanians, I talking to. I'm not talking to John to come lately. I'm talking to us. Get up.
Yeah. So this was back in 2016. I'm just pulling up the article here. Obviously, this was before CMR was around. And Alden was talking about, he's warning against hatred and bigotry. So both Mac and Alden, listen to this, both Mac and Alden attended and spoke during this, apparently shared this stage with this guy by the name of Gibbs. And if you go and look up who Gibbs is and what he stands for, well, he stands for hate against the LGBTQ community. And they brought him here for this anti-gay rally. So he has this whole homophobic agenda. But more importantly than that, no one is asking the question, right? When it comes to child abuse, why are we overlooking where these people stand on this whole child abuse issue? These so-called Bible-based family values. These are the people who are part of this church, the IBLP. This is what they preach. Y'all need to go. I understand there's actually a whole series on this now about the Duggars. And this comes up. There was a Seventh-day Adventist rally back in 2016. And these people were all part of it, right? And they're perpetrating and facilitating child sexual, emotional, and sexual abuse for many, many years. Churches play a really, really important part in this discourse as well. And the abuse that children are having to go through at the hands of some of these incredibly evil people. Caller, I always appreciate your contributions. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Darlene, good morning.
Hello. Yeah, first of all, I want to say, we as a country, just like how we stand up for every other organization, whatever they go out there, they protest or whatever. I think it's time for us now to get out of this, like what Johan and the previous one said. Are not those people in government have kids, it don't matter anymore, because a society that fail their kids, they're elderly, they're disabled, and right now we are failing in those three categories is a lost society.
Yes.
Right? You have people that can't, I don't even know. I talk to them on a daily basis, trying to say what you do. I couldn't live in Cayman because disabled people are not looked after. They are not looked after. Same as our kids are not looked after. So if we're going to sit down there and think for 1 minute that if we don't get this straight, these three things, and then the animals after, if we are not taking care of them, we are lost. And I can see that. That's what's happening to us. Forget about what all the past governments has done. There is one in here now. Do what you know. Get up, Cayman. Rise up for this. And you know what? To all, to you, as Johan said, thank you, Sandy. You know what? A law should be passed, the Sandy Hill law. I declare it today, a Sandy Hill law, because you're the only one that have ever spoken, and thanks to you in that category. So stop sitting on the sofa, get out there, put up the banners, go and sit down, and remember, I'm telling you this, I've said it before, until we get more women, quote unquote, mothers in that parliament, we are going to hell.
Well, we have the most in there now, and I still feel like we're still.
Let me tell you, it's not enough. It's not enough.
Yeah.
It's not enough. They're still overpowered by these men with these great egos. They have all the friends that do all the dirty work, and all the lodge men, and all of these that covers each other's back and the other beat. So get them up, rise up, come on. If women, we have children, we bear the pain for them 9 months. We bear the pain. Men don't know that. They know they put it there and that's about it. Most of them don't care. Kudos to the ones that are fathers that care and gonna look out no matter what for their children, because we do have some. But for the majority, the ego comes first. And you men that have women and have children at hand, come forward. Come forward as leaders of the house, of society, head of the house. Come forward and come and rise up against this type of behavior. The laws need to change. Change them. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you, caller. All right, we have another call in the line. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Morning, Sandra.
Morning.
This is Kenneth.
Oh, Minister Brian. Good morning.
I'm calling just to say I'm glad that you continued your efforts in respect to this area. You've been doing it for a long, long time, and I'm quite sure it'll be on the agenda of the Park administration to have the appropriate discussions as to what the next steps are, and your platform can allow necessary attention to it. But separate and apart from that, because I agree with you wholeheartedly, we have to be more stern in respect to these types of actions. And you and I have had many conversations about this before when I was in opposition. I just am concerned about one little thing, and I want you to bear with me now, is that granted, yes, this issue is something that is deserving the full attention of the government, and we have to do something about it. But the narrative to say that the Christian community don't get out and say anything, and they're hateful, is unfair. I really think it's unfair. You don't say, well, the LGBT community isn't getting up and saying anything. I just feel it's an assault on my religion.
Well, tell me where they've spoken out. The reason why I speak about.
I agree that they haven't.
Oh, okay. Because the reason why I speak about them is that they're protesting other things. This is the point.
Yeah, but
so they're out there protesting against other, people, and I don't see them protesting against abuses. And we all know, I think it's fair to say that we're very much aware of the role that the church has actually played in the abuse of children, because a lot of perpetrators use a religion and indoctrination in churches as their feeding ground to have access to people's children, even right here in this jurisdiction.
So do schools, right? I mean, there's feeding grounds everywhere. What I don't think is fair is to put every Christian in one bag.
But I'm not doing that. I mean, the people who the cat fit should wear it.
And you don't call out other groups.
Well, let me break it down. Let me break this down to this morning, Minister. I was just talking this morning about the Seventh-day Adventist Church, right? Who actually had a protest back in 2017 against the LGBTQ community. Who did they bring here? They bring someone who is known for his message being about, the control and abuse, basically, of children. Have you looked at this situation? Are you familiar with what I'm even talking about?
Matter of fact, he was one of the known stars. I just watched it last night on TV, being sentenced for his unfortunate 19 siblings and being molesting his siblings.
I haven't watched it, but
that's not the point, though. That's not my point. My point is,
it is the point. That's why these churches can't get the right message and focus on the right thing.
No, not all churches are like that. And a church doesn't mean your religion sets you to be the definition of one or 10 bad apples. I mean, I feel like I honestly, the Christian foundation upon which my country was built, I feel like there's an assault every single day by you in respect to making a laughery or a jokery about the fact that we're Christian people. Nobody's perfect. Jesus Christ wasn't perfect. Right?
Actually, he was. If you read the Bible, he was the only man that walked without any flaws. So he was a perfect man. Okay. I don't know. That's what my King James version said.
Fine. From the human flesh perspective is what I'm talking about. My point is that it's not fair for you to lump it all in one. Nobody's perfect, right? But you don't take the same energy on the other groups who don't do things that are stand up against this very important topic.
Are you sure? Because I'm taking the same energy with you MPs. I'm taking the same energy with you MPs all the time. You guys have failed us.
Listen, we are allowed to take those licks. That's what we paid to get to do. But what I don't want you doing is constantly beating up on the Christian community just because you may not be in favor with them. That's not fair, because not every Christian is like that, Sandra.
But I don't know where you're getting that idea from, because I think you need to distinguish. You need to distinguish religion.
Are not willing to come on the radio and talk about how they feel about your attack on them. But this is not the only time. You constant attack on Christians as if to say they're all horrible. Right? Yes. Christians who've done bad things, and I don't really think they're Christians, because that's what.
Well, then that's where you need to understand the difference between religions and a person who is a true Christian. Not everybody who professes to be a Christian.
You said so this morning. All these so-called Christians.
Well, that's why I said so-called. You understand? You know what so-called means?
Yeah, I know what
they're professing to be something that I clearly don't think that they are.
Well, I'm asking you on behalf of those who are good to say more in line of, we know that all Christians are not like that, right? And that we respect those who do it right. Because it feels like an attack. You know how many Christians I talk to go, oh my God, it's like I can't even be a Christian in my own country.
No,
Sandra, it hurts. It hurts. I'm telling you, you can say no, sir, all you want. But I am honestly, and I don't even go to church every Sunday, right? But I know what my foundation is, and I feel that there's an attack on that. And sadly, I'm now taking the conversation away from a very important topic, because
I wish you had this passion for talking about how you legislators are going to protect your children. That's what I'd love for you to speak on. The churches have power in this country more than any other organized group. Kenneth, Minister Brian.
You have the Honorable Premier coming on now.
Why don't you speak on it? You are from a district, excuse me, Minister, you are from a district that has had some egregious cases. Remember that 80-something-year-old right down there in Swamped who was molesting his grandchild and raping and molesting her? Why don't I hear you speak out on these things? Forget about the churches. The churches can speak. They are powerful. They control you politicians. Tell me what you intend to do to protect children in this community right now on this Thursday morning. What will you do? Forget about the premier. He can speak for himself. You called in this morning. I want to hear what you plan to do. How will you champion this cause?
I'm championing it right now by calling in the show. Which other ministers?
You calling in defending churches? They don't need you to defend them. They have a captured audience, Minister. They have people who believe what they say no matter what they say. They really don't need you defending them. I want to hear how you will defend the voiceless children in this community who have nobody to speak up for them. That's what I'd love to hear.
When I was in opposition talking about it with you publicly, I wasn't defending it, then that's okay. Your bias is fine with me. And you know that I will stand for any misjustice at all. And I'm fine with that. You can come after me. That's okay. But
well, Minister, you shouldn't be taking it personal, just like the churches shouldn't be taking it personal either.
If you're going to go after the Christian community, yes, I will take it personal. I will take it personal, Sandra. Nobody else wants to tell you that, right? Because they're afraid of you. I'm not afraid of you. You shouldn't do that. Have a little bit of respect for the Christian community, please.
Well, respect is earned. So the ones that earn it, I have all the respect in the world for them.
Do you have the same empathy and respect for the gay community, like how you ban and bash Christians, which I think they're deserving of respect just as much? But it's
there's no lesser or greater respect for people.
Well, it doesn't come off that way when you talk about it on the radio.
We appreciate the comments, Minister.
I think I made my point.
Yes.
And I'm happy to come back and talk on your show about what the government is going to do. You have
I sure hope so.
Show, you can ask him about it as well, so we can do it as a collective group.
Because all right.
When you go out by yourself, then they say you're out by yourself. So you have the leader. You ask him what we are going to do as a group. Okay.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right. We had another caller. I think they might have hung up, but do feel free to call back. Let's read some of the comments. Garrett says, when has Sandy ever attacked them? Mary says, Darlene, I like the Sandra Hill law. We got another caller. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Yes, good morning.
Yes,
good morning,
sir.
Miss Sandy.
Yes, sir.
This is Dexter Bodden.
Yes, my love. How are you?
I would like to challenge the honorable minister to debate his Christian beliefs. What he needs to do is keep religion out of our government. That's what he needs to do. He does not need to be out here defending Christianity.
You can
He's
imagine.
not out here defending the Muslims. He's not out here defending the Jews. He's not out here defending the Buddhists. He's not out here defending anything else. And he needs to keep his beliefs himself. I can respect everyone's right to their belief, but I do not have to respect what they believe. You have no evidence to prove any God ever existed, any Jesus ever existed. There's probably evidence of a person called Jesus that existed in those times, but he was not. It has not been proven that he was anything of any supernatural being or born of a virgin mother. It has not been proven, and he needs to get off of that horse.
Lord have mercy.
Brian, you need to get off that horse. I know you do not want to have anything to do with me. You refuse to return my calls. You refuse to have anything to do with me. But I am here to challenge you, Kenneth Bryan, today to debate Dexter Bodden in regard to your religion and your right to use your religion in your government, in our government. I refuse to accept that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Dexter. What a hot mess. Venetia says the church is to be held to a higher standard because of what they represent. So Sandy, keep talking. Well, N.A. Smith is in agreement with Kenneth. They said, finally, someone speaks out. She's all about the gay community and abortion. Abortion? What? When have we ever talked about abortion on this show even? Oh, my God. Okay, N.A. Smith. But against the church. Bravo, Minister Kenneth. Let's see what other people think. Marshall says, did he just say that Jesus was imperfect? He needs to read the Bible. Lord have mercy. Really not trying to bash Christians, but what have they done in regards to child abuse? Well, he's at least agreed that they actually haven't done anything. They haven't protested on that, but they find time to protest on other things. That's all I'm saying. I mean, they are the church after all. We, as Venetia said, we have an expectation of them that they're clearly not living up to. Alejandro said it's not directed to one church. If the cap fits, wear it. Johan says holding any group accountable is attacking them when they fail to show consistency and do their jobs. Well, Carmelie says, wow. Kenneth Bryan, wow. Gabby says who the cap fits. Akina says, is this what he has strength for? Respectfully. Alejandro is asking why Kenneth is getting emotional, diverting the problems. Leanne Watler says true Christians don't sit down and dwell on what others have to say about us, as they know who they are in Christ. Clearly, feelings are hurt, and dirty conscience is why they feel attacked. Bink says we as a country suck when it comes to fighting and protecting our women and children. Alejandro says really weird people. I'm not sure what that means, but okay. Jamila says that's Joey's constituency. Don't hear from him. Listen, every single MP has an obligation to speak on this issue, right? Whether it's Joey, Kenneth, they all have child molesters in their constituencies, in their families, in the communities, in the churches, in the bars, everywhere. Vicky says, go ahead, Sandy, lick the nail on the head. Good morning to Miss Debbie. She says, I've had so many problems with our so-called Christians. Not all are bad, but I'm very weary of them. Vicky says, Kenneth, come on, answer Sandy. I'm not sure what question it was, but anyway, probably the one about, this is what you have the energy for this morning. The churches have a lot of power. They control politicians. Trust me when I tell you that, right? That's why half of them never went to church in their lives until they're looking to run for public office. And then they're knocking down church doors, trying to get the vote of the Christian community. So let's be very clear. Politicians know how to pander to and play with these churches. That is why the likes of McKeever Bush, even after he's been convicted of assaulting a woman, Now he's being accused and charged with assaulting 2 more Caymanian women this time. We still have people down in Swamp, pastors jumping up on a pulpit talking about leave this man alone. This is what these so-called churches do. This is what leaders of religion do in this country. Right? Pastor, you know who I'm referring to. Can't remember your name now, but you know who you are. You're talking about, oh, leave McKeeve alone until he comes and feels up your wife and your children, until he drags your wife by her hair and boxes her down when he's having another drunken stupor moment. Just because the man jumps up and sings in church choirs and can visit does not mean anything. And this is where I have a problem. Even in the face of wrongdoing, these churches still support politicians and others when they know they should not be doing so. Some of the biggest crooks and scammers in this country, you see, we've had them on this program. They live in church. Look at poor George. The man singing church choir every chance he get. He live in church, always talking about Yahweh and God and whatever. That does not mean he's a good person. It certainly does not mean he's Christ-like, because Christ did not walk around sexually molesting people and taking money from people and not completing work. These are not Christian principles. Caller, good morning.
Yeah, morning, Sunday. You know, I don't know where this religion got into this topic.
Boy,
right? But
I don't know.
The emotions that hit a lot of these people when they feel guilty about certain things, you know, when you know somebody, you tend to start defending when it comes into what Minister Brian was talking about, I have no clue what he's defending.
Well,
because
I tell you.
they have some people in the churches, right, that they are predators. They're big time predators, and they hide amongst the people with the money, and they get the favors. They get the favors and the wash. They wash their hands with the Bible, and they testify as if they were big time Christians. And I have nothing against the Christians. You know, I have a good community, a good Christian family, and I love them dearly. But I know they would never do anything to hurt me or my children or my child, I would say. Hopefully more children coming on the way. But the thing is about it, right? There's a thing that the far right Americans are protesting against now. They're the gays against rumors. I am watching that very, very, very closely, because guess what? If that ever hits the Cayman Islands, and I do keep in touch with people, I know a lot of people can think crazy things. I know a lot of people do crazy things. And one thing I don't trust is when you trust an adult that you don't know with your children. And the
point is, Alejandro, let me be very clear. Even the people that you do know, they're the ones who you cannot trust with your children. Most children are abused by people that are trusted family members and or friends.
Yeah, I agree. And this is where I'm going to get to the point now. Those people that we trust in our community with our children, it is a mandatory thing that all parents should be listening to this right now and taking notes. Because when you send your children to school or daycare, or even at a family member's house to watch them for a little bit of time when they get to do what they have to do, always remember to tell your children that it is okay to tell them secrets. Because if a parent is a responsible parent, they will teach their children that a responsible adult do not keep secrets away from responsible adults. And I always preach this, you know, because it comes in when you carry your children to school and you ask them, how was your day? Did anything bad happen today? It's simple as that. A child does not lie. A child cannot make up lies if they did not see it. Children are innocent or innocent beings, and we need to listen to them, even if it sounds delusional. Remember, delusional only comes from a wild imagination that you try not to believe in. You try not to believe in it, you know, but it's something that is happening. You call it delusional when it sounds crazy enough to not believe, right? So
All right, Alejandro, thank you.
I advise parents to listen to their children when something is going wrong and watch their behaviors. You know, then they always have their hands in their mouths, so afraid to speak.
Yeah.
Ask them what's going on.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Miss Lisa says he needs to step down. Speaking about the minister, he says God was not perfect. He is lost. Lord Jesus. A lot of people are shocked by the minister's comments. Garrett says, I'm really losing respect for Kenneth Bryan the longer he speaks. Vicky says, why is he not defending the kids? Debbie says, disagree with Minister Bodden. Venetia says, come on, Kenneth. You're here getting emotional over something that was immaterial to the topic. Natasha says, ask Kenneth why the church never came out and march and preach about the sexual assault and rape of minors. They all rail up and get upset about homosexuality. Vicky says, Kenneth, remember you have kids and pray no one molest them. My word. Stacy seems shocked. N.A. Smith is in support of Kenneth, says now the Satanist calls in. I don't know who that's supposed to be. Oh, I guess Mr. Dexter. Okay. Thought the caller was going to lay down some solutions, says Dean. The truth will cut you like a razor, says Everton. Marshall says they haven't done anything and they ain't going to do anything about child abuse. Jess says, my ears are deceiving me. How is it that people don't understand the difference between religion and being a Christian? I don't understand that either. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good morning.
What a hot mess.
Yep, exactly. Why the deflecting on a topic that is so very, very important and also so very disturbing about child abuse? It's everywhere, and yes, here in the Cayman Islands. And I just wanted to know why he was so passionate and so outraged by you and or Christian people when that is not what the topic was about at all. Where was his outrage for the children? Where was his passion when speaking about child abuse? I heard a lot of lip service. That's exactly what I heard, just more lip service. Christian for convenience. You know, if they want these laws changed, they can change these laws. They need to come together. They need to sit down. They need to get serious, and they need to make changes, not only in legislation but also in the judicial system. With these people need to spend more time in prison, even if they, hard labor. We have plenty of quarries around here. Put them out there. Remember the old chain and gang? Well, people like this, that's exactly what they deserve. Hard labor.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, Sandy, that you were attacked in that way, because you do speak up, you do have a voice, and we do appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And I just wish some of these MPs would remember their past. When they were younger, how they acted, what they did, how they treated women, how they bullied kids.
Yeah, and some of them, to be clear, still doing it. That's why Chris Saunders got demoted. Y'all are missing. You're missing the elephant in the room. Somebody said some of these sitting members of government right now are child molesters and rapists themselves. They have a long history that is known to a lot of people in this community. And yet the minister, since he wants to be, an advocate for the churches, he needs to try and tell me about his long-standing Christian beliefs. Why are you, Chris Saunders, #1 BFF? So much so that you were contemplating tearing this very government apart so that you, Chris Saunders, and J.E. Banks could go form a government, knowing what the former deputy premier and minister has been accused of by members of the civil service and women in this community. Why don't you have energy to talk about that instead of pretending like your good comrade and your good friend has done nothing wrong? Find some energy to speak on the right things that actually matter to the people of this country, because it's not going to be hidden any longer.
And I would like to know, when he became such a Christian?
Dwayne, hush. Let's leave that one there. Appreciate it. Woo. See, listen, this show has gone off the rails this morning, but we're going to go with a little bit. I am respectful that we do have minimum wage coming up. We have the poor premier who's been patiently waiting, but Premier Panton, with all due respect, we need to have this conversation because some of your so-called ministers, they're ministers of government, not ministers of the church. And like that last caller said, they need to try to think about their own actions, both past and present. Good morning, caller.
Yes, good morning again, Miss Sandy.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I just needed to say, in response to the I guess the voice note or the message that you read in regards to that Satan called in. It's sad that Caymanian people haven't taken the time to listen nor to view other people's beliefs and other people's view of religions and reason and rational thinking and logic and all of those sorts of things. You're not supposed to question the Bible. You're just supposed to have faith. What's wrong with our people?
I don't, Mr. Dexter, we can
anything else other than what they've been.
Yes, we can, Mr. Dexter, what I want to do is we can have this conversation another day. I really want to keep this focused on what we were actually talking about, which is the child abuse of our children. But we appreciate, we appreciate your comments.
Had he not called in defending Christianity within his portfolio of the government, I would not have called in.
Thank you, my dear. Appreciate it.
He needs to keep the government, and this is to the premier as well. Keep religion out of government. Keep religion out of government. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Cecil says, Sandra, you handle that call, minister, very nicely. Lisa says they got upset about homosexuals because so many of them are in the closet and are the ones molesting their own family. Jesus, speak the truth this morning and shame the devil. Good morning, caller.
Yeah, hi. Good morning, Sandra.
Morning.
I'm listening with great interest to this conversation this morning with the church, and I really would like to share on that. But I think when you just mentioned that the premier is following, I want to take the opportunity to actually to kind of lay some ground that I would like him to talk on. You mentioned it, I think, earlier this week that there's been a great silence on the global warming. There's a new proposed legislation that they're putting in place, and there's no public debate on this.
Yes.
And the reason that we need to be educated on this, climate change. Thank you. Yes. And the reason we need to be informed on this is because many countries, through legislation, is restricting basic rights. For example, in the U.S. and Netherlands and Holland and other countries are restricting farmers from farming to feed communities and restricting people from doing certain things that they need to survive. And I'm happy that he's actually coming on this morning. And I know he's not coming to talk about this, but ask him, please, why is there not more regularly conversations, talk shows, town hall meetings? Because this is very far-reaching. This legislation is very far-reaching. And it's unfortunate too many people don't understand the far-reaching ramifications of this proposed legislation. So if you could, just ask him. He may not have time to, but if you ask him, if he can set a time soon as possible, because I think it expires at the end of the month. And there's been no town hall meetings, no public discussions about it. If you can extend that reprocess perhaps another 30 days and have more public discussions about what's expected, and then the community can give our feedback.
Yes, thank you so much. All right. So listen, my apologies to the premier. This topic, because obviously I'm going to bring him in briefly, but he actually has a 9:30 appointment. So I know that we won't be able to have any real conversations with him this morning. But Premier Panton, let me extend my apologies to you. Sometimes the show just goes in a different direction than we anticipate. Thank you so much for being willing to come on the program today. And, you've obviously been listening to some of the comments. We have so much. That last caller wants to talk about, the climate change, which I think is something that you've been championing First time we've ever had a ministry of climate change and what's the other part of the ministry called? Resilience. I think you muted yourself. Sorry, just unmute your mic for me.
Sorry. Yes. Yeah. Good morning, everyone.
Good
morning, Sandra. That would be the Ministry of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency.
Right. And we have to have a conversation about even what those things mean. But can we just put that on the agenda for our follow-up discussion? But I'm going to put you on the spot here this morning, Premier. With all due respect, the people of this community, somebody just said to me, go through the long history of the petition that you submitted, must be 15, 20 years ago now. Some of the things, to be fair to our legislators, like mandatory reporting was one of the things that was in that petition. It took forever to finally pass the children's law, but it was eventually done, and it does now incorporate a mandatory reporting provision for people who work with children, something that was long needed. Why is it that our children in particular, we have legislation, financial legislation, anti-money laundering legislation, COVID legislation. There's so many things that take priority in terms of the passage through the Legislative Assembly. These MPs jumping up about, they want a motion about interest rates and about this and that. They've never brought a motion, and I shouldn't say never ever because I don't like to use these exclusive terms, but you don't hear this being on the agenda or in the tongues of any of these MPs. Where does your government, your minister put you in the hot seat? He said the Premier's coming on, you ask him so we can do this collectively. Why is there a resistance to protecting children in particular? Why don't we have a sex offenders registry? The Attorney General has said, yes, we need one, but he can't figure out how to implement it. Why is this such a difficult area? The community, mothers, fathers, aunts, uncles are saying, give us something legislatively to try to protect our children. Here's a guy, and I don't think you're probably listening to the show, but this kicked off because a man by the name of Kason Ricardo Holness appealed his sentence of a mere 33 months for child pornography. I was personally involved in this, and that the video was shown to me, brought to my attention. I immediately contacted the police. They asked me to download the video. I gave it to them, and that's how they were able to prosecute and charge this man. Right? We all have a role to play in protecting children, even children that I don't know who that baby was. I don't know what jurisdiction that child is in. But when are governments, when are the other MPs going to get, as Mr. former deputy, he always likes to talk about testicular fortitude. He doesn't seem to have very much himself for the topics that matter. Tell us, what's your position on protecting your children? And when can we see some real legislative changes in this regard?
Yeah. Sandra, I feel like I've dropped into the middle of a really hot discussion this morning. But it started off very importantly based on what you've just been outlining. And these are concerns around the protection and ensuring safety of our children. There can be no more important thing than that. I mean, we have existing legislation clearly that is designed to prevent the abuse of children, is designed to allow the prosecution of people for everything, including what you've just outlined, the possession of something as sick as and the sharing of something as sick as child pornography, or even something that relates to the abuse of children, or the exposure of children to different issues like that. This is an issue that we're all going to be concerned about at all times. We are clearly not afraid of dealing with difficult issues. I mean, one of the things that I brought forward is the sexual harassment bill. And of course, that may be relevant to younger people as well. But it's specifically more relevant to interactions of adults where there's unwanted engagement and pursuit. But this situation with children is something that I can give you a commitment that I will have the conversation with the Attorney General on to understand exactly where we are with that. I know that, and you know, I think several people have acknowledged, including the minister that called in, acknowledged that you have been championing this issue for a long time. I remember, I don't know how long it's been, but I remember, you know, having conversations with you about it probably 8 or 10 years ago at least. So, you know, this is, and you've been specifically championing, you know, a sex offender register and this type of thing. We have existing legislation in place, but we've definitely got to build on that framework of legislation, because if you know, we have to recognize the reality that human behavior doesn't change very much. We have the same flaws in human nature that we had, you know, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 15 years ago. We have those same flaws today. Problem is that we have so much technology today that can amplify the abuse. So I absolutely agree that we need to make sure that legislation is brought up to date, that is current, that reflects current circumstances, and I agree that we should have a very clear discussion about what is needed today in order to ensure that we properly protect our children, or best protect our children. As you know, I am an advocate for the interests of children. I'm an advocate for the mental health of children in particular. But that is, you know, there's nothing more important. And I think I referenced that in a message that I sent around on Father's Day on Sunday. There's nothing more important in our lives than being strong fathers and advocates for our children, and that includes the protection of our children. So I will have the conversation with the Attorney General when he returns. Those provisions, all these provisions dealing with you know, the prosecution of individuals that are abusers, fall within the penal code, and that is typically handled by the Attorney General. But there's nothing to say that I can't deal with it as Premier either. But I'll have that discussion with him. We are working currently on a number of amendments to legislation dealing with child protection, but that is more, that's less on the criminal side. The criminal side really falls under the penal code. So I'll have that conversation with the Attorney General. To be honest, I can't recall whether he has ever articulated his view or position on a sex offenders register and that type of
well,
thing. Well,
I'll help you out in that regard, Premier. At one point,
he has said that he supports it. So
yeah,
I think
at
that
one
means
point
that,
he
you know,
said that
that would make the conversation easier.
Yeah, at one point, the initial conversation that was coming from him is that, oh, it's going to be so difficult because we're such a small jurisdiction. And, you know, there's this idea of, oh, you know, we want to protect the children, but we're doing nothing to protect children, to be very, very clear. And you know, I want people to understand it's
I don't think that's completely accurate though, Sandy, to be fair.
No,
as I said, we do have legislation in place, but
yeah, well, what I'm
but
saying,
you're right that we
need more,
we
and
do
not
have
just
the need
legislation.
to evolve that.
The sentencing, for example, right? To think that someone could get 10 years for possession of a firearm, which is a very serious offense, but you can destroy the lives of children. Talk about mental health. Most people who have severe mental health issues, when you look at their background as children, they were abused, right? This is
I agree with you,
issue.
Sandra. Let me tell you a little quick story, right? One of my, a close friend, right? A close friend just over the last few years. This person is very mature, well educated, well put together, somebody that you would believe is a tower of strength, and somebody who is a powerful figure in society. In a conversation, this person breaks down and tells me that she was abused as a young girl multiple times by different male figures in her life. You know, I sat there, and it's difficult to talk about because I can tell you that I sat there and I cried. I cried because I realized that there's so many of us that go around that have been exposed to this kind of situation, have been injured and damaged by this kind of situation. And it is such a burden, even for those people who manage to overcome it. It is such a burden for them to carry on in their lives, and that should not happen. It should not happen. And we have seen too many circumstances where this type of thing happens. It's brushed under the table or the carpet or the rug or whatever you want to do in terms of hiding it. These things are real, they happen, and we have to stop it. We have to find ways to put in place the mechanisms to prevent it from happening, and to hold people accountable when it does happen. Because when I see these people, when I see people who are what I consider to be very strong, educated people, and I finally see their pain because of issues like this, you realize that it is probably way more prevalent. And it means that we've got to do a much better job of addressing this. We've got to confront this issue.
Well, Premier, I know that you guys have a number, and you've got to go here. You've got a number of working groups and committees. We're going to see the National Wage Committee come up next. Might I make a recommendation that you put together, as a matter of urgency, put together a committee around this issue? Because there's it's a 360 approach that's required. So victims, especially child victims, but all victims, need more access to counseling services at no charge, because one of the roadblocks that they always hit is that they can't afford to be sending their children to counseling, but the children need the counseling. There's the penal side of things, which we have been discussing, but that's not everything. But that needs to be, we need to increase sentencing. We need to look at mandatory and minimum sentencing for certain types of offenses. But we need to look at
just
prevention.
like mental illness, just like mental health issues, this is one of those things that we have got to come to grips with as a society, and accept that it is real, and that it is real harm to our children. That it's not something that they get over in 6 months.
Exactly.
It's not something that they get over in 5 years. They take it through their entire lifetimes, and those are not burdens that people should have to carry. Life is hard enough. Life can be hard enough as it is. So I agree with you.
I mean, prevention.
I am willing to confront the hard issues and deal with the hard issues, and I think this is one of those things. I would say that it is easy sometimes for us all to get caught up in the heat of the moment and arguing about the issues, and sort of sometimes lose perspective as to how we should be respectful of each other's views. I don't hear anybody advocating that this kind of behavior should be allowed. So that's not the issue. But I think everybody is every right-thinking person, I believe, is going to take the position that we must do something about this kind of
Well, I don't
behavior.
know, but
And stop it.
Premier, I'm going to give you an example of where, you know, I wasn't thinking of this when you're Minister of Transport. Is he still Transport Tourism? Transport is no longer under him, I believe. But anyway, the minister, Honorable Kenneth Bryan, when he was speaking, and he says that, you know, he thinks we're being unfair to the churches. I had a conversation, and I don't normally share private conversations as such, but, you know, the governor, the previous governor, Mr. Martin Roper, before he left, quite a while before he left, actually invited me to come and sit down with him because he was listening to one of the shows and we were talking about this topic. And he wanted my sort of input on what else can be done. He's like, you know, from the UK's perspective, we've set aside money. We want to do training programs in school. We want to do more to educate because prevention, right? We're always talking about what to do with these perpetrators afterwards, but what about prevention? What about protecting our children before they become victims? That is so critical, and that's the most important thing. And he talked about, you know, them having a program in place that could be rolled out to the schools that hasn't been. You know why? And this is where I hope the minister, the Honorable Kenneth Bryan, is still listening to the program. The reason why is the Christian schools, listen very, very closely, Kenneth, Minister Bryan, the Christian schools said they did not want this curriculum in their schools because, it has an element of teaching children about their own sexual being and what's good touch and what's bad touch. And no, this goes against God and what the Bible says. It's like, what? Those are the churches. So you talk about, the churches they're not speaking out against it, but maybe they're not really, you know, they don't have an issue with trying to protect your children. I take issue with that. Because this is something that I've never actually shared on this program, but that I know the governor said they were flabbergasted that churches did not want this age-appropriate education. They were refusing it for the Christian-based schools in this community. So when you want to defend the churches to get a few extra votes, you need to think carefully about what it is that you're saying and who it is that you're defending. Now, I'm not saying that that's every single church in this community. But what I'm saying is whatever church is that comprised of, and they do have an association, right? They refuse to have this curriculum that would be educating our younger children about what they should do if they find themselves in certain situations. Anyway, Premier, I want to be respectful of your time. My apologies for the overrun today. I know you've got a hard stop at 9:30. I'm going to invite you back on next week, Thursday. Although I'm traveling, I will have a shorter, condensed show for about an hour and a half. Okay. We will give you the entire show next week, Thursday, to make up for today's debacle. So.
I don't know what's happening, Sandra, but you're breaking up a bit. I don't know if I'm breaking up when I'm talking to you, but you're breaking up a bit when you're coming through, and it's freezing a little bit. But I just also wanted to mention that you know, I think it probably was about 4 or 5 years ago now, there was an agency that was set up specifically here.
The MASH unit.
I think it was an initiative that went across all of the overseas territories and in the UK, which was the MASH unit, the multi-agency child safeguarding hub, and I think that was probably what previous Governor Martin Roper was probably discussing with you, because I think there have been discussions around how just, you know, whether that's been as effective as it could be, and needing to be able to develop that path further or evolve it a bit more. But so clearly we do have concerns, we have legislation, and we have programs that are designed to help them. And the MASH unit obviously is police, it's you know, counselors, all these types of things that are designed to try to address these problems. But I absolutely believe that this is not an issue that we should be brushing under the carpet. It is not an issue that we should take the position that we shouldn't have open discussions about, because it is happening. There are people that are suffering real harm from this, and that includes many of our children. And I have seen far too often adults who have carried this burden, and we need to stop it. It happens too often, and I am respectful of the views of everybody and the contribution different elements make in society, including the churches. But I do believe that we're better placed and we have a better outcome if we have honest, open discussions and we do our best to ensure that our children are wiser and more informed and understand where they may be possibly being exposed to manipulation and abuse. So I'm all for having a separate show to discuss this very openly. I know that my colleagues would support that 100%. And as I said, everything from the sexual harassment bill that we've had in public consultation to improvements on child protection services, to what I hope will be a discussion with the Attorney General and his chambers around what we can do to address the concerns around registers and stuff that you've outlined. I mean, I can see the problems, I can see the difficulties with a small jurisdiction, but that doesn't necessarily mean we can't do something. But education and bringing attention to this, and particularly addressing things like stigma. I mean, young people who are exposed to this sort of thing and abused, they carry a stigma as well because they believe that it was their fault. They believe that they asked for it. And guess what? I've heard too many times of young children or young adults who have gone to their elders, gone even to their parents at times, and didn't get the supporting response that they should have had. So we as a society have to be better than this, and we have to make sure that we address these issues and don't pretend that it's somebody else's problem. It's our problem to resolve. It's our problem in government. It's our problem across society to face up and address and find the solutions for. So just very quickly switching to the other point that you made about the draft climate change policy. Did I understand the caller to be saying that they thought that there wasn't enough public consultation on that or they hadn't heard of any public consultation?
Yeah, I mean, I think what they're saying is, I don't know how the public consultation or the communication plan was rolled out, but he's saying that a lot of people, and I would tend to agree with this sentiment, that a lot of people don't seem to know very much about it. Like they don't understand what it is, what it means.
Well, I mean, that's, we've tried very hard to recognize and get out the message, get out the information. We've done it through social media. We've done it through the radio. I mean, there was one day that I was coming in, and in the 15 minutes it took me to drive from my house into work, I heard 3 announcements about the meetings. We had the same issue with the discussions around the boundary commission, electoral boundary commission meetings. Those meetings weren't very well attended either. So I agree with you, and I would like to have a specific show on your program on the climate change, the draft climate change policy, so that there's a full and clear understanding in relation to that. We have been all across the country. I have done the meetings in the BRAC and in Little Cayman. I didn't get to attend any of the meetings in Grand Cayman because they unfortunately overlapped with Parliament, and we were working into the evenings in Parliament. I saw a comment on social media saying that there were no senior members of government attending 1 or 2 of the meetings. Well, that would have been because it just happened to coincide with Parliament. So that was unfortunate.
Premier, may I make a suggestion, a humble suggestion? We do have the minimum wage committee folks who are here waiting as well to come on. This is an important topic, so you want to give them
absolutely
as much time Yeah. But it seems to me that this concept of having public meetings is so 1990s and maybe early 2000s. We are in the year 2023 now, right? And, government's communication arm seems a little bit behind on how to reach the public, the wider public. Having a meeting when we can't even get home before 7:30 at night because of traffic. Having these 6 o'clock, 7 p.m. meetings, at some obscure town hall just doesn't work. They need to do more. I'm not saying abandon that completely, because maybe the 5 people that attended will come out.
But I just want to make clear that all of those efforts were employed. Where I would suggest that there was a gap is they need to be able to come on shows like yours to be able to reach a lot more people as well. Because I know it was streamed in various places. It was there were shows on Radio Cayman multiple times. I'm not sure about any other radio stations.
We've been begging anybody in relation to the Boundaries Commission to come on this program. Nothing yet.
Yeah.
We're still begging for PSPB people to come on and talk about government public service pension versus private pension. Nothing yet.
Right.
All
right.
Yeah,
well, I will encourage
your climate change people. I think the closest we got, which was part of the hurricane show, was Miss Jennifer came on and said, "Oh, just a reminder, it's coming up." We need details. We need an in-depth discussion on what this means. People just don't know. However, Premier, speaking of hurricanes, we've got 2 active storms, I understand, that's now out there. And of course, we had a whole slide presentation on, we can do it next week, but on hurricane preparedness. So it's probably worth reminding people that Brett is now a borderline hurricane at almost 70 miles per hour with higher gusts. Still technically a tropical storm. It's heading west at 15 miles per hour. What's your advice for people as they watch this storm and others very, very carefully?
My advice is to keep an eye on it very carefully, is to continue to prepare as if it is an active threat. Obviously, you have to time when you do certain things. You don't have to batten down your windows yet and all that kind of stuff, but do all the preliminary things. Make sure you get all your supplies that you need. Go on gov.ky, I think is /prepared, and get the information from that. There's even things like there's a form that you can download which gives you ideas on what you should be doing to prepare, to help prepare. I would like to be able to have you distribute that on your show, or make people specifically aware of it on your show, because I think not everybody, how we all are, we leave things till the last minute sometimes, and this is not something that we should be doing. Brett is a potential threat, and it is not close to us obviously yet. It's still probably 1,000 miles from us, but you don't want to wait until it's 2 days away before you start preparing. Get all your preliminary things, decide what the preliminary things are that you need, and get those organized. Get all your hurricane supplies together. Those are not things that waste. They don't have short shelf lives. Do all the preliminary stuff so that you don't need to be rushing around at the last minute. I think the projection for Brett is that it will enter into an unfavorable environment once it comes into the Caribbean, but that doesn't mean that, and it's projected to not strengthen and probably weaken, but that's just a projection. You remember Ivan was supposed to go over the middle of Jamaica, then it was going directly towards the sister islands, and then it ended up coming and almost running directly over Grand Cayman. So hurricanes do what they want. They do. The projections and the analysis, that's just not going to be 100% accurate. What we have 100% control over is our preparation. So let's do that. make sure that we stay safe, Cayman. Sandra, I'm going to have to run, but
absolutely.
thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Premier Townsend.
We'll have a chat about arranging another show specifically with relevant people to discuss the issues that you were talking about today. You started off with today, and then we'll talk about the other things a later day. All right. So let me just say, have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful Thursday, Friday, and weekend, and be safe to everybody. And God bless our Cayman Islands. One love.
Okay. Thank you so much, Premier Townsend. Let's go ahead and take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to change gears and have our guests come on who are going to be talking about the minimum wage. They're members of the Minimum Wage Committee.
Ocean Ridge Heights offers an amazing opportunity to own a piece of land in idyllic Cayman Brac, right on the bluff, starting from $80,000. Located in a quiet residential area with high elevation, these lots are ideal for a future home or investment property and are sure to go fast. Cayman Brac offers a laid-back lifestyle, amazing pristine diving, limestone caves, diverse flora, along with amazing wildlife. Inquire about the owner financing options so that you can secure your piece of paradise today. With only a few lots remaining, these are sure to go before you know it. Contact Crichton Properties today on 345-949-5250 or info@crichtonproperties.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the program. We had a whole slide for hurricane preparedness that we were going to share with the Premier, but, we just go with the flow a lot of times here in the program. Obviously, that was an important discussion that we needed to have. We did not expect the Minister of Tourism to call in and to add a different layer to the conversation, but he did. And very, very interesting indeed. So we'll pick that up in another day's conversation. We have some scheduled guests that we want to make sure we give ample time to this morning. They are members of the Minimum Wage Advisory Committee. We have Mr. Lemuel Hurlston, who is the chair, and Miss Maureen, is it Nabi?
Yes. Yeah. Good morning.
Yes. Good morning. And she is the lead for research methodologies for the subcommittee on this as well. So good morning to both of you, and thank you so much for joining the program today. This is one of those national discussions.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, this is one of those national discussions that is extremely important. We've been talking about, remind us of how long a minimum wage has now been in place in the Cayman Islands.
Minimum wage has been in effect since 2016. 1st of March, I think, was the date. So it's now 7 years in the making.
Right. Okay. And so, of course, everyone is always talking about this topic. There's a lot of dialogue around it, and we want to find out a little bit more about what your Minimum Wage Advisory Committee was tasked with doing. And of course, some of the things then that you have found. Ms. Maureen is in charge of the research methodologies for the subcommittee. I think this is really, really important because this is something that's going to impact every single person. There's this broad trickle-down effect. Exactly. And so we want to learn about some of the implications of that as well. So 7 years it's been in place. I think that initially the government had said there would be a review after about 4 years or so. I think that hasn't happened. But now this committee, how long was the committee formed? And how long have you guys been working on this now?
We started working on this the last week of January, and we have so far had we've now had 21 meetings. We've been meeting weekly. And I'll just make 2 points as we get started. Firstly, we are an advisory committee, which means the government may or may not accept our advice. They appointed us to do the work, and they have the option of accepting our recommendations or not. Previous government accepted our report, but did not accept or did not implement all of the advice that the report contained in terms of reviewing at future increments. So governments have the ability to make decisions for themselves, and we are just an advisory group doing the groundwork for them. The second point I'd like to make is that we are not starting from scratch on this occasion, but we're simply building on what has been done before. And so we're hoping to wrap this up and get our final report submitted to government by the end of September.
Okay, very good. All right, so you're starting to do some public engagement now, which we really appreciate. As we were just saying to the premier, that a lot of times there seems to be sort of a miscommunication or no communication at all with what it is that even, advisory committees such as the Minimum Wage Advisory Committee are doing. So I appreciate you reaching out and wanting to come on the program and tell us a little bit more about this. So we're looking at a minimum wage that was introduced in the Cayman Islands back in 2015. Inflation back then was running at a negative 2.8%. Clearly, that is no longer the case. We've seen just in the last couple of years, inflationary rates have skyrocketed double digits, not just here in the Cayman Islands, but all over the world. Has this put the pressure on, you think, to really address the issue of looking closely at the minimum wage and keeping it in line? Ms. Maureen, perhaps you can answer this from a methodology perspective, keeping it in line with inflation so that there's more of a balance.
I think that's definitely a consideration. So I would say we have, as a committee, had a number of presentations from the Economics and Statistics Office. They and the government, in all their statements about why they've pulled this committee together, why now, everybody recognizes that the minimum wage that was set 6 years ago is no longer sufficient for the current daily life is. In coming up with an answer, ESO looks at economic, and statistical data for things like inflation. What would it be if we matched, an increase in the minimum wage to an increase in inflation every year? What would it be if we looked at, how many people are currently making minimum wage and moving them out of what might be considered a vulnerable space? They're doing all that data analysis, but that's just one component. And I think that's why on the public outreach side, we are doing a number of things to pull in other information that is going to inform a final decision or just a recommendation on what the new minimum wage will be, what it looks like. But it's not, unfortunately / fortunately, it's not as simple as just matching it to inflation, but it's a factor that's being considered.
Yeah. So it's obviously much more complex than that. So the initial decision to set the minimum wage at $6 per hour, do we know at that time what factors would have been, taken into account that made them think that $6 was sort of a fair point at which to set it at?
Well, the $6 was arrived at because it was an introductory minimum wage. It was the first time that the country was grappling with the subject. And we looked at the impacts of having the minimum wage set too low, as well as the impact of having the minimum wage set too high. And we compromised by having a $6 an hour introductory rate, knowing very well that there would be a few people that would be borderline and there would be a few people that would be below that. But the vast majority of people in the Cayman Islands were already earning at or above $6 an hour when that rate was introduced. And so it did not have a very major economic impact on the country. But now, with the cost of living being what it is in a post-COVID environment, we are looking at a totally different set of circumstances. And what we're getting from the public, the limited feedback that we've gotten thus far, is that the public is expecting an increase in that minimum wage. And we have to come up with a recommendation that is realistic for the current environment.
Right. Okay. I just want to remind our listening public, if you have any questions for these two members of the Minimum Wage Advisory Committee, you can certainly call in 936-2626 is the telephone number. So let's talk a little bit. We hear these different terms and people might not always really grasp exactly what it is that they mean, but what is the difference between a minimum wage versus a living, or some people say livable wage?
Sure. A minimum wage is a legally required wage that is set typically to ensure that those who are the most vulnerable in society aren't in a situation where they can't be protected when it comes to their wages. When it comes to a living wage, that's often when you hear about living wages in other countries, some conversation has happened around the UK has a living wage, and there's different systems set up for that. It's often lifestyle factor based. So it's not about just keeping somebody out of poverty or above the vulnerability line. It's actually about talking as a society and saying, what do we feel is an acceptable lifestyle to live? And what would that lifestyle cost? There are some considerations being given to that. So the ESO is doing an exercise right now, which is called the garden basket exercise, which actually goes out, and I think they haven't done it for a couple of years, but because of the economy and what we're considering, they're going and looking in stores and saying, for a typical shop, for a individual, for a typical shop or grocery run for a family, what is the cost of basic goods, right? To create that sort of idea around what is the average cost of that type of stuff. So that report, I believe, will be ready later this year. So that work is being done, but living wage is based on more of those factors. And when it comes to minimum wage, it really is looking at what would be called the vulnerability line. And that is, if someone were to be making less than that, they would fall into poverty, essentially.
Okay. Yeah. Very, very interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
So the basic difference then is that one is enforceable by law.
Yes.
With penalties. The other is a lifestyle number that is an expectation and a negotiated amount rather than a fixed, set, enforceable amount.
What we're seeing a lot in the feedback as well, and where we've just started off the public outreach campaign, is even in conversations and going on to a few shows, is people often conflate the two, right? So they talk about, well, I would love to have, $100 an hour makes sense to me based on what we need to live the life that we want in the place that we want. But that is not the mandate of the minimum wage committee. So as we're having these discussions, we're really trying to ensure that people understand when we're asking you what you think the next minimum wage should be, you absolutely have a right to say, I want it to be $30 an hour. But in reality, our job, our mandate is to set it at a rate that is keeping people out of the vulnerability line.
And the vulnerability line, how is that defined?
That is an economic determination that is done using international data, international standards and mechanisms to calculate what is the number below which persons will fall into poverty. And in the case of Cayman, we worked that out, and the economic result of that analysis tells us that it's just over $6 an hour. Anyone less than that is going to be at the risk of slipping into poverty.
Someone's asking a question. We do have a question that just came in. They said, what were the recommendations from the last time the committee was formed and under the previous administration?
Yes.
Do you know what that is? That a publicly available report?
It is publicly available.
Okay.
The report in its entirety was tabled in Parliament. And so it is publicly available. There were a number of recommendations that were made, some legislative recommendations for upgrading legislation to make it congruent with what was happening. There were other recommendations with regard to future updates and future review periods. So all of those recommendations are available in the publicly available document.
For context as well, Mr. Hurlston was the chair on that original committee as well. So there is some continuity.
There's a bit of continuity.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good. So I'll ask Ms. Maureen to maybe send us a copy of that report, and then we can have that discussion with our audience by kind of going through it in a bit more detail. We do have a caller in the line. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I know that what I'm about to say isn't directly the preview of your committee, but I think it would be good if you would recommend to the relevant powers that in order to assist people in their daily lives as things dynamically change subsequent to the setting of whatever the new minimum wage level will be, that let's say, for example, the ESO would have a set of online tools that would allow someone to go to their website and have a my cost of living calculator, so that the person could say, for example, I rent, I don't have a mortgage, I buy this category of foods, I don't buy these other categories of food, because you can have inflation in one segment of society and not in the other. And so not everyone's realized inflation rate would be the same. And it would be people would be able to look at it and see measure whether that newly set minimum wage level, what that means for them, so that they would be better prepared the next time we have a discussion about what the minimum wage should be, so that people can contribute in a more personally informed way.
Okay, we will pass on that comment and recommendation to the ESO representatives on our committee, and I'm sure that they will say thank you for the idea. The idea being to have a more interactive opportunity to engage in a sort of a live calculation. If the ESO are able to do that on their website, that would help the public immensely. So we'll pass on that recommendation. Thank you very much.
All right, caller, thank you. Thank you so much for that question. 936 Bobo is the telephone number. If you have a query, feel free to give us a call. Again, we have members of the Minimum Wage Advisory Committee who are in the studio with us at this time. So I've heard you, Maureen, mention a couple times the ESO, and I want to touch on them because obviously they play a very important role in terms of data collection. I was actually speaking to them earlier this week because I'm one of those people that keeps getting emails from them every year about, the business survey. And I said to them, do you switch it up? Do you ask other people? Because give me a break one year, But, I always try to comply, not just because it's a legal requirement, but in order for organizations or committees such as the Minimum Wage Advisory Committee to even know what to recommend, you need a data set of information. So talk about the important role of the ESO in providing information. And then we do have a caller who's also on the line.
Sure. Mr. Holston can step in as well, but the ESO has been pivotal in terms of our understanding of where the economy is at, where it has been, and where they see it going. And a big part of that is in thanks to people like you, business owners, or those who filled out the census, who identify various data points, like you said, that will help us calculate a minimum wage. So just for overall research methodologies context, the ESO has a portion to play where they do the statistical analysis, and they have created a model that we can put different numbers into and say, if we were to, statistically speaking, put the dollar value at this amount for minimum wage, what would that mean for the impact on a certain number of employees who would move away from the vulnerability line? Would that impact businesses negatively? And this is just based on obviously an economic model they've created. That's one piece of the research that we're doing. So they do play a very important part in helping us have an understanding of those things. But the other piece is the work that the committee is doing for public outreach, which is equally important to inform what is going to help us make that decision. What are people really concerned about? So ESO has presented us, I'm just looking at my list, with 3 reports. There was one on poverty and vulnerability, sort of setting that marker to say, we can't go below this, otherwise we'll be in trouble. The other one was methodologies for determining a minimum wage. So just talking about the different approaches that the previous team had used. And the other one was on insights into Caymanians affected by minimum wage. So looking at, when it comes to Caymanians specifically, not the entire population, how many approximately, because it's not exact, would be making minimum wage now, and what would it take to move them out of that? So they really do, they have a lot of really good data. And they are also they partner with external, bodies who know a lot about this stuff in the region and internationally to make sure that the stuff they're using is right and the models are good.
Right. And are those reports also publicly available or?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Not yet. All right.
Components of those will be included in the final report.
Right.
They're deemed to be relevant for the recommendation. So.
Okay, we've got a caller in the line. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, hi again, Sandy.
Hi there.
And morning to your guests.
Morning.
I query if in your consideration in determining these factors, you have also considered the United Nations, through its branch of the International Monetary Fund, is pushing a universal basic income, to which the UK, United States, there's a whole litany of countries has already started to formulate this program whereby the governments would be issuing different sums of money. For example, the UK is granting, they have a pilot program right now. They're granting some £1,600 per month, whether you're employed or unemployed. And if you have considered this, is it that we, being a dependent territory of the UK, would be exempt from that, or would we be included in that? And if so, what do you think, or what have you, if you have, considered that sum to be? I'll listen to your response. Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that question.
Thank you for that. That's a very interesting question. We are in the process of a consultation with the International Labour Organization. And the International Labour Organization is one of the United Nations agencies that focuses internationally on labor and labor matters alone. We benefited from them on the last occasion by having a consultant advise us, and we included the consultant's report in its entirety as an appendix to our report so that the public could see what the ILO said in respect of the Cayman Islands. On this occasion, we may not have a consultant to visit the Cayman Islands to help us, but they are helping us online with reviewing some of our data to make sure that we are compliant with international norms. We have not considered the universal income concept just yet, but we are aware that there are countries that are experimenting with that concept. And it is a concept that if you have the means to fund it, meaning the revenue base to fund it, it's probably worth the experiment. We have not reached that stage yet.
Very good question.
The other note that I would say is that part of the public consultation, that's through the surveys, I know we were talking about town hall meetings earlier, but we will be doing a series of those. Those that we want to hear this feedback. We're going to record this feedback. And if it is something that is a trend in people's opinions on what should happen, then even though it's not our mandate is to set a new minimum wage or look at a wage point, we have also been given the freedom in direction from the minister and the ministry to create other recommendations in that report and say, you know what, our mandate was this, we've provided our recommendation. However, 50% of the people we spoke to are saying that they need a universal basic income, if that is the trend. So I appreciate you bringing that up. It is an important concept, and if there are enough people who want to put their opinions behind that, then we'll make sure that it's included as well.
Very good. All right. So lots of useful information already, folks. And again, if you have a question, 936-2626 is the telephone number. You can also WhatsApp us and we'll read out your question to our guest this morning. So what aspects of the last report were not implemented that you think this current government should really take a close, look at?
The main one that I would recommend is the recommendation in relation to the frequency and timelines for future reviews. Because what happens is that inflation is a big factor in people's cost of living allowances. And if the reviews are not updated regularly, people feel that they're falling behind. When they feel that they're being left behind, they take desperate steps to try and catch up. So the recommendation in relation to regular reviews, and maybe it could be a biannual review, it doesn't have to be annual, but at least a biannual review of the basic data that underpins the minimum wage could be taken, and a determination made quickly for budgeting purposes as to whether there's any need to do an adjustment during that period. And that's the key recommendation that the government needs to take seriously, because if that is done, then the public will feel that they are benefiting from whatever adjustments result.
Absolutely. Understandable. Okay. Very, very good. All right. So your remit then, in terms of what you're tasked with this time around, just run us through exactly what your mandate is. What are your main objectives?
Sure. It really is to look at considerations for on what the point should be that should inform a new minimum wage to protect those that are most vulnerable in society. And in addition to that, there's a second piece of our mandate that actually gives us the task of looking at if any of the changes we could make to minimum wage would allow for more opportunity for Caymanians to join into the workforce who may not be in the workforce or may not be working in particular sectors or jobs that currently pay minimum wage instead of using imported labor. So that is the second piece. I will say, so the previous report, just to reiterate, it is publicly available. I'll send you the link, Sandra, so you can share with your viewers and listeners.
Yes, thank you.
But in that report, it was decided by the previous committee that the task at hand, which was introducing a new minimum wage, was a very significant task, and that they would address the first part of the mandate, which was to set a new minimum wage, introduce it, identify legislation points, and but the second part would not be addressed. Because, as we all know, we can think of quickly, there's a million other factors that play into solving that problem and that concern, addressing that concern. So the overall mandate is those two. The current committee is looking at both of them. We may find that our data gives us enough to address both, or it doesn't.
And we have had a recent presentation done to us by WORC. We were heartened to learn that they have just recently established a little unit within WORC that is focusing exclusively on helping to identify Caymanians that just need a little bit of extra help in order to fit into the labor force and to fit into the job market. And we were very encouraged to hear that appears to be working. It appears to be gaining some traction. So Caymanians can look to work to help them where they need a little bit of extra help in fitting into the labor force.
I mean, that's interesting because one of the common feedbacks from persons in the community is that WORC just doesn't work. Pun intended. So I mean, I'd love to hear more from them.
Yeah, we have been encouraged by what we've heard, and we really hope that initiative will take hold, and that everybody in the community will support it and lend a helping hand where we can.
Absolutely. All right, that sounds. I mean, we're hopeful. We always remain hopeful.
It is hopeful.
So that's good to know. One of the questions that has always, we're going to talk about some of the impacts, if you will, of increasing the minimum wage, because like I said, there's always an impact, there's always a trickle-down effect. But one of the things that I'm always curious about is who is actually at minimum wage. What does this person look like? What's their level of education? What's their work experience? What's their nationality? Are we really increasing the minimum wage for Caymanians? What industries do they work in? What do we know about the individual, the average person who is at this minimum wage, $6 per hour? Who is it?
That's a really instructive comment. The Economic and Statistics Office has given us a sort of a framework that we can look at. There are five categories of industries: the construction industry, the retail and wholesale, the service industry, the tourism sector, that are really the most vulnerable and the most affected by a minimum wage regime. We have some data on that. We're going to try and flesh that out a little bit more. They've also done a survey just recently asking businesses to tell them if the minimum wage were to be increased by $1 an hour, or $2 an hour, or $3 an hour, or more, what would that impact look like on their particular business? So we've got some responses. We're analyzing those responses now. And it appears that businesses are generally expecting some increase. What they're saying is that if the increase is not substantial, they will try and absorb the increase as part of their operation without passing it on to their consumers. But if it goes above a certain number, then they may be forced to pass on those costs to their consumer, which in turn feeds our inflation number. So we're looking at all of that data now to try and determine, as you said, who are the primary beneficiaries, who are the ones that are going to be most negatively affected, and whether these are Caymanians or non-Caymanians. All of that is going to have to be taken into consideration. Last time around, we found that it was primarily the non-Caymanian population that was affected, because it was the non-Caymanians that generally came in and accepted the lower paid jobs, particularly in the service industry and the tourism sector.
So what stage will we have? Because in my opinion, you certainly can't make any recommendations if you don't have a good fix on who this, for lack of a better word, this sort of hypothetical, but not really, like who is the minimum wage worker? So at what stage will you actually have that information available that you can share with the public?
We will try to describe that as best we can in our report, bearing in mind that that is a very elusive and dynamic description. And we wouldn't want to paint that description as being exclusive or all-inclusive. So we have to be careful how we describe that creature. But we will try and describe it in ways that the public can understand what we're getting at. And what we're trying to get at is what number could we recommend that A, would satisfy the needs of the workers, the expectation of the workers, and at the same time meets the affordability level for businesses to be able to afford to pay that particular rate.
I think as well, one of the reasons why when Mr. Holston is speaking and he's saying it's elusive in terms of down, is because even ESO, when we look at their data and we look at the information they have, depending on what is being reported and how often in terms of gratuity schemes, other benefits that somebody may have, or if somebody is choosing to be a part-time worker, and when you work out their hourly overall, all of a sudden they're in minimum wage. But if you were to look at what they want, according to, there's so many factors. So they are doing their best to come up with a position for us to look at to say, if we were to look at this excluding, gratuities, this is the number, and this is the split between expats and Caymanians. And if we were to look at it with gratuity schemes based on what we have on record at DLP, this is what it would look like. So to give you a very specific answer is unfortunately not available, but we're looking at different models to make sure that we're at least giving consideration to who this person could be based on various factors.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was hopeful for a more specific answer,
yeah.
but I understand what you're saying. So let's talk about then some of the implications for businesses in the community. Again, I wonder, who is the average business? What does that look like that's actually paying in minimum wage? Are these micro businesses, small businesses, larger organizations? Who's still paying people $6 an hour?
We have some records of that, and we are, as I said, we put these into 5 different business categories. The construction industry is a major employer of minimum wage, of low wage workers. The service industry, the tourism sector, hospitality workers, store clerks, domestic helpers, security guards, those kinds of persons are in that lower income category. And we have some estimates of how many people are to be impacted by a minimum wage by looking at what they're currently earning. And if we were to increase that, we then have to assess what those increases means to the economy, as well as to the individual employers within that larger economy. That's where we're going to spend a little bit of time looking at all of the data that is available to us, knowing that the data itself is incomplete, but it is the best available that we have access to.
To piggyback off of the idea that the data is incomplete, what we're finding, again, we've only been running the survey now for a week, and we've had a great response, and a lot of anecdotal information is coming through. You'll see that on the Minimum Wage Cayman Facebook page. You'll see it on the Instagram posts. People are sharing stories that identify that even if the data or their employer may say that they are making minimum wage, there are other things that are happening that show that that's not the case. That is why the public outreach piece is so important, because the statistics can show us, oh, we think X number of people are making minimum wage, or oh, there's not actually a lot of people making minimum wage, what's the problem? But when you speak to people and you see that perhaps they should be working full time, but they've only got assigned 10 hours in a week, right? Whatever the factors are, that anecdotal information is super important. And I just keep encouraging everybody, respond to the survey, join in the discussions, visit us at the town hall, send an email to minimumwage@gov.ky. We want to hear everything, and we promise to keep it anonymous if that is what you'd like.
All right, we have a question here. This person says, do they have the number of Caymanians impacted currently earning the minimum wage? And I think this is the question. This part of my question is, who is the person? Do we have any idea of, is it mostly expat workers? I know last time you said that you found that it was primarily expat workers. Has that changed?
We have not seen any evidence to suggest that that has changed substantially. So we have a feeling that maybe the picture continues to be that it is the expat worker who comes in and takes a minimum wage job that is going to be impacted. So the trend, it looks as if the trend continues.
Yes. All right. So Selvin has a question. He says, can you ask your guests, was input from organizations such as the Chamber of Commerce that tends to represent employers sought, and where will the committee turn to have employees representation? So let's talk about who's actually on the committee, because I think that this would answer Selvin's question.
Yeah, so there's actually 18 people on this committee. It's quite a large committee, but the point was to have it split into thirds.
Yes.
So a third of people, including myself, represent employees. I am there on behalf of the Business and Professional Women's Association. And then I've volunteered for this role of the research lead. It's an interest of mine. You have Mr. Hurlston, who is an independent appointee. You have somebody there from the Chamber of Commerce. You have someone there from Cayman Finance representing employers. You have a youth representative. You have a Sister Islands representative from Cayman Brac and Little. And those people are also representing employees. So six people are employee representatives, 6 are employers, and then 6 are independently appointed. So
everyone from UCCI, the Economics and Statistics Office has a rep on there, Business and Professional Women's Club, Cayman Islands Tourism Association, CIA, Society of HR Professionals, Cayman's Contractors Association, the Small Business Association, Cayman Finance, Chamber of Commerce, Civil Society, which includes both the youth and sister islands, and the CI Legal Practitioners Association. Good to have a few lawyers thrown in there. So that's the group. So it's a pretty wide representation, Selvin, that covers a number of different groups in the community, including the chamber. So hopefully that answers that question.
I can also attest that, with 18 of us and from such differing perspectives, we've had 21 meetings so far, and I don't think there's been a single meeting at which everyone has agreed on everything.
Yes, of course.
That's the point of the entire committee, is to pull people together who have completely differing perspectives and come up with some solution that could be acceptable to everybody.
Okay. All right. Alberto says, good morning, Sandy. Please ask, what is the statistical difference in dollars between minimum wage and actual livable wage? We did answer this question already. So
it's very hard to answer that in terms of dollar differences, because one is based on a lifestyle component, the other is based on a legally enforceable minimum. And when we say minimum, we do mean minimum.
Yes.
Because there's a huge difference, and people just need to understand that there is this difference, but you can't quantify it in terms of a dollar amount between the two. It's more to it than just dollars.
Right. And when we think about this sort of discussion around minimum wage, one of the questions or things that comes to my mind is the businesses that will be impacted, especially the micro and small businesses. So what consideration is being given to them? Because this could mean, depends on how much it's increased, that some businesses may choose to close because it no longer makes sense for a little retail store that's, barely making it because of inflationary costs and all this other stuff, to then have a shopkeeper employed. Maybe they'll have to make adjustments like going online, and people can, order that way and just do a delivery service. Or I think businesses will have to be innovative with how this works. Some businesses will automatically just increase their costs. They're like, okay, I now have to pay this person, just throwing out a number, $10 an hour. That $10 an hour, that extra $4 an hour has to be absorbed somewhere. Yeah. And where it's going to be absorbed is the consumer is going to pay it. Is that the general attitude of businesses? And what are micro and small businesses saying about how they're going to be prepared for an increase in the minimum wage?
I'm hoping that we will get some feedback from small businesses during the course of our public consultation and surveys and focus groups. But there's also the issue of the timeline for implementation of any adjustments that may be coming. And if the government were to give small businesses sufficient advance notice that this increase is coming with effect from a future date, then those businesses will have the opportunity of making some business model adjustments, perhaps, in order to minimize the fallout.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you do know that there will be some marginal businesses that may go under. Those are businesses that would perhaps have gone under in any event. Possibly, we don't know.
There's some initial feedback as well. So when you hit the survey, you'll see that you can choose to answer it as an employer, as an employee, household employee, different choices. So from the one that's an employer who is a private business owner, the answers are varied so far. And again, we just kicked this off, so obviously no conclusions, but some are saying we might reduce the hours worked of particular employees. We might absorb the costs. Oh no, it's affordable for our business, so we'll just pull it in to our general costs, and the goods and services won't increase. And then others are saying we have to increase goods and services. So like Mr. Hurlston said, it's going to depend on the health of the existing business and how adaptable they can be to different options, and the amount of time they're given to implement that change.
Because there are things that increase along with the minimum wage, right? So it's not just the hourly minimum wage, it's pension contributions and other stuff as well that kind of, are associated with it. And, one of the things that we see in different industries here is a non-compliance with not just paying the minimum wage. Sometimes that happens. I see those cases in court all the time, but non-compliance of providing health insurance and pension, because, you know, even businesses that from the outward appearance, you think, oh, that business is doing well. Turns out they're doing well because they're not paying their workers the benefits that they should be getting by law. Yeah. And if you now increase the burden on them to pay even more in terms of a minimum wage, how does that impact compliance and other areas of the law? And more importantly, who's going to now up the enforcement of those things as well?
Precisely. And that's one area that we're going to make specific recommendations to government about, because it may be that some additional resources might be required in certain areas in order to enforce and comply and make sure that there is that mechanism for people to feel comfortable in reporting infractions and getting complaints properly investigated and dealt with. That's a whole area of perhaps new work in the future to be concentrated on.
And, you know, it also strikes me that a lot of businesses, you talked about pricing models, for example, a lot of small and micro businesses have no idea how to price goods. They don't know what costs of goods are. So, I mean, I guess it's not really government's job to educate people. If you want to get into business, they figure, well, you better know how to do it. But I think there should be something available in the community as well to really assist small businesses.
The DCI, Department of Commerce and Investment, I think they do try to do some public awareness training and they do offer some free seminars for small businesses.
I also know that just based on the composition of the committee, speaking to the representative from CETA, speaking to representative from Chamber and the representative Small Business Association, they've all said that they're committed as an organization in their conversations to including, once something is implemented or a decision's made, an education component for all of their members, right? So that is being taken on by those organizations in addition to what government is doing as well.
All right. So Not So Hot says, of course, outside workers will be affected in the hospitality industry because 90% of hospitality is foreigners, and they just prefer to hire their own. So he says native Caymanians don't have a chance. Another person says that some 70% of the construction industry is also foreign workers. Do we have any of this information? I think this is useful for the public to know in different industries what the compilation and what the makeup is. Is that something that ESO has provided?
Yes, the Economic and Statistics Office has all of that data broken down. Because remember, we just did a population census late last year. So all of that data is available and is publicly available on the ESO's website.
Yeah, I think we need to have them on the program to break down some of that for us as well. Howard said, how much data do you need to collect? This has been years. Well, the thing about data is it's always changing. So you want to make sure that you have the most accurate, available data. You just talked about the recent census that was just done. And this is why it's also important, Howard, for people to participate, because a lot of people refuse, I'm not going to give them my personal information, but then they can't make policy decisions if they don't have, data for the majority of people that's accurate and meaningful. Yeah. So that's why it's important for people to participate in things like surveys and censuses and so on. So Ms. Sandra says the best data is the price of food at Foster's, CUC and other places. The best indicator is Burger King. $8 KYD. If minimum wage is raised, this will increase prices higher than they are now. And it's so interesting when people think about food and what things like food cost in relation to even the minimum wage. I was just in Florida the other day, and I can tell you, what you're paying for a cheeseburger or a meal or whatever is really on par with what you're going to be paying right in the state of Florida. For these things. They're not cheap, they're not, I shouldn't use the word cheap, but the price has increased again because of inflation, especially over the last couple of years. Everything has literally gone up with some of the big markers, fuel, transportation, and those things increasing significantly.
Yeah.
I think that's why the exercise that ESO is doing, that garden basket exercise, the idea of what is it if I go to shop for an individual, a couple, a family, of four, like what is the price to have basic food for the family at the store, is going to be such an informative piece of information once it's complete. But of course, they're doing it properly, and they're taking a little bit of time to complete it properly. So it'll be done by the end of the year. And that will help inform further conversations.
Yes. So Alma says that this is why we need to have price control, but that's wishful thinking. I know that's not your area, but it's kind of connected to the discussion a little bit.
Yeah.
Any views on price control? Do we really want government to be telling people what to charge?
I don't think the country is ready. I don't think the country is ready for price control mechanisms just yet, because that's another whole bureaucracy that is costly, and the benefits can hardly sometimes outweigh the cost of doing it.
I mean, and let's be very honest, no free commercial community or society really pushes price control. Nowhere in the world, not even the United States of America, do they go around telling people what to charge for a burger or a piece of chicken leg. So on the face of it, it seems like, oh, that's a good, easy fix, but there's so many complexities surrounding something like price control. I think the least amount sometimes of government control and intervention in people's lives, the better.
Precisely.
Well, listen, thank you guys so much for coming on the program today. This has been a very, very good discussion. This is the first of several sessions that they'll be joining us for. So at this stage, you're looking for feedback from the public. So tell us about the meetings, the survey, how people can reach out to you and give you their thoughts and feedback.
Awesome. Yeah. So the survey is live. If you go to our Facebook page, apologies. If you go to our Facebook page, Minimum Wage Cayman, then you'll be able to find the survey link there. You go to the Instagram page, it's there. If anybody is not on social media, but they may be watching this or hearing it on Bobo, we are having printed copies of the surveys available at public libraries. That will be as of Friday, so tomorrow, so that you can go and someone there can assist you if you need in filling it out. And so the survey is one component. We're going to have in mid-July a series of meetings in each district, just to allow people to come and have their say. We're going to be inviting your political representatives so they can give their feedback on what the topic is and what their thoughts are. And the other component is a few focus groups that we'll be hosting. And we'll be recruiting people for through partnerships with organizations on a focus group that focuses on those who are unemployed, those who are youth, so under 25, just because that they will have a differing perspective often, and one for those who are underemployed. And so just watch for information on those to be upcoming. We are hoping to wrap up the public outreach overall between all of those things by the end of August to allow us to analyze all that information. The survey will close at the end of July, though. So please I encourage you to any feedback, any ideas you have about how to model this new minimum wage, whether it's price control, whether it's, what was the other, universal basic income. All these ideas are valid and they're important. So please share with us and we will make sure to consider them.
All right, folks. So public consultation now officially open. Let your voices be heard. Whatever your thoughts are on this, please complete the survey. You can find it online. They'll have printed copies for you. You're part of the process. You're a stakeholder, to ensure that this is done to benefit the most amount of people, hopefully in the right way. So this committee has been working hard since January. They've been accomplishing a lot. Now they've gotten to the stage where they're asking for and encouraging the public to get involved as part of the public consultation phase. Only going to be open for about a month. So folks, get on it. Don't wait till the last minute. Don't delay. There will be numerous ways. I know we'll have some social media posts going up on our platforms as well. There'll be numerous ways for you to participate. And that's the most important thing. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, for coming on the program today. Mr. Hurlston, of course, is the chair of the Minimum Wage Advisory Committee. That's Mr. Lemuel Hurlston. And Ms. Maureen Nabi is the lead for research methodologies as part of the subcommittee. So wonderful Hotspot is asking, is there going to be anything at the public library? Mm-hmm. Well, he's asking if people still go to the library. Probably not as much as you think.
Yeah. It's just an option for anyone who may not be online and is listening and thinks, I'd rather have a paper copy. Sometimes, you know, feeling that in your hands is more comfortable for people. So
yeah, beautiful. All right. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys.
Take care.
Thank you so much. All right, folks. So that wraps up another episode of the Cold Hard Truth. Remember now, tomorrow morning I won't be live, but we will be having a segment of Cayman Voices. So tune in for that. It's sure to be very, very, you guys are going to learn so much. Very, very entertaining. Going away, a little trip over the next week. We'll have some shorter segments. Again, sorry we didn't have enough time with the premiere. We'll make up for it. We'll get him back in next week, Thursday, and he'll spend hopefully the entire program with us because it's only going to be an hour and a half show. So you guys have a fantastic and safe weekend. Please, 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 I'm always begging you, do not drink and drive, honey child. It doesn't lead to anything good. Be safe out there in the streets. You know, look after people, look after the kids in the neighborhood. Do the best that you can and make sure that you let your MPs know. We had a very interesting discussion today. You care about protecting children, message your MP. Let them know, please. We care about not protecting churches. They can protect themselves. We care about protecting our children. And that's our collective jobs to be able to do that. All right. Fantastical. Okay, folks. Alejandro says, try not bring Brian on the show with that Christian subject again, with all respect. Oh, geez, and peace. Alejandro, just like we give you and everybody else an opportunity to say their piece. Well, the minister had an opportunity to say his piece this morning. I think he didn't do himself any favors, though. I really don't think he got any extra votes out of that one. Anyway, honey child, I'm not their campaign manager, so what do I know? Hot mess. Y'all be good.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Cold Hard Truth on Bobo 89.1 FM. Cayman's #1 talk show is live weekdays from 7:30 a.m. Never miss an episode again. Watch anytime on CMR's Facebook and YouTube channels for the latest show episodes. Don't forget to follow us online on our social media channels and visit CaymanMarlRoad.com for all the latest news and community happenings.